let's do it. We're going live. I hit the live button. I still don't know when that means we actually go live, but hopefully we're live momentarily. According to the thingy, we're live. So if we are live, hello there, everyone. Welcome. This is On Just Restart. I am joined by Shifty from IAmShifty, who is linked in the description below. Good friend, back again. And then we also got Brandon, WhataboutNodnarb, another good friend, back again, as usual. He's also linked in the description below. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing well.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat. I'm doing well. I'm actually still playing No More Heroes, even though I know most people beat it already.
I blazed through that. Through it.
I mean, I don't get me wrong. I love the game, but you know, life stuff gets in the way, and on top of it, I'm actually playing like other Suda 51 titles at the same time. I'm playing No More Heroes 3, so I have a lot of things I'm going back and forth on with it.
Yeah, well, we were talking about it a little bit earlier. I really do want to like go back and play Killer 7 now. And I guess I could do it on PC, but I kind of want to get a GameCube up and running again. And because I've been wanting to go get a GameCube again. I lost my GameCube years ago.
I'm going to get a Wii that has backwards compatibility, and then I already have a monitor I want to hook up. But I've been thinking the same kind of thing. I want to play GameCube and Wii games again on an actual system.
There's just so many good games. There's so many good games.
Yeah.
Why wasn't GameCube more successful?
I could get a Wii with a GameCube for like $50. It's really not bad.
Like if the Switch had gone the equivalent of today's game of like the GameCube games like during this era, like they would have been kind of fine. You know, like Nintendo had good software. But the GameCube still did not perform well. So what was it that caused the GameCube to like just crash and burn? Because like we could go over a list. Like you could put out a dozen high quality Nintendo like GameCube games. Not all of them were Nintendo first party, but they were at least exclusives or timed exclusives for GameCube, like almost for every single year. So then if GameCube had that software library, like why did the GameCube fail so miserably? Like why is it like one of the worst selling pieces of hardware for Nintendo ever? You know, like it's just such a good lineup. But we have a paper.
Such a weird situation.
I'm pretty sure. While everyone rolls in the chat, I will get to the chat momentarily, guys. I just want to
come out with the GameCube list.
We're gonna do the GameCube list right now. And guys in the chat, just tell me great GameCube games.
I can tell you great GameCube games.
And the thing is, they can still be multi-plat, but they need to have some sort of level of exclusivity to them. For example, Soul Calibur 2 was the best on Nintendo GameCube. Why? Because it had Link, and also it sold better than the others. So, Soul Calibur 2, and it ran like a dream. Soul Calibur 2. All right, so that's one.
Oh, that's like $1,000 door on there, bro.
Paper Mario.
Too,
yeah.
I was gonna say, like, we already mentioned Killer 7. You can't just not put Killer 7.
Oh, yeah, Killer 7's right there. Killer 7. Okay. We're getting Metroid Super Monkey Ball. I forget the name, Mania or something later this month. That has at least 2 of those games were on GameCube, maybe 3.
I think 1 and 2.
1 and 2 for sure.
2 and 3 were on GameCube, weren't they?
Was the third one on there?
I think so.
Okay.
I don't know for sure. Though.
Just to be safe, I'm gonna just say gonna say Monkey Ball 1 and 2, but you might be right. Just to not oversell here. So we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games. Wave Race Blue Storm.
we haven't even mentioned like some of my favorites, which is like Metroid Prime, F-Zero GX.
Yeah.
I can only write so fast, guys.
I mean, come on, man, write faster. Come on, you're the host.
Okay, you said Metroid Prime, obviously, yeah. Metroid Prime is one of the greatest games of all. You know what? Maybe I should. Obviously, it's like literally like one of the highest rated games ever. Metroid Prime, and there's obviously the second one, which is also really good. So F-Zero GX is like the best racing game ever made. That's not a lie. I am not. Give me a lie detector test. These are Q-tips. Good enough. It is the greatest racing game ever made.
Was Rogue Squadron only on GameCube?
There was 2 Rogue Squadron games. I think they were both exclusives at the time.
Well,
at least the first one.
Because Killer 7 technically was on PS2, but that port was bad.
I think it was at least a timed exclusive, right?
It might have been.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
So Rogue Squadron 1 and 2.
Feel better on GameCube.
No, Super Chris, it is not a lie. F-Zero GX, it is the greatest racing game ever.
You're gonna annoy all of the Mario Kart Double Dash fans.
Oh, there's another one. MK.
I never have played this game in my entire life.
Star Fox ass.
What, Mario Kart?
It's just short for Assault.
Mario
Star
Kart
Fox Assault is great. Rule of 2 review. Rob is here. What's up, bro? Star Fox Assault and Adventures.
Mario Kart in general.
The games, we're just still scratching the surface here. That's the crazy part. Like, we're still just scratching the surface here. Like, it's just insane.
Do you count remakes in this?
Okay. ReZero. And I don't mean the awesome anime. I mean the awesome Resident Evil remake. And then there's what? They remade 1 and 2 as well. Twin Snakes.
Metal Gear Solid.
Twin Snakes. Yeah. That was considered a really good one.
So that's the one I was thinking initially.
But Resident Evil 0, that's not a remake. That's just a new Resident Evil. But they remade 1 and 2 with the same engine. They at least did one of them.
It might have been 1.
I'm just gonna say remake, but with but with a capital RE. Just to be on the safe side, we'll count it as 1.
RE1 RE.
And then also one of the other greatest games of all time, Resident Evil 4, came out first on GameCube, and it ran best on GameCube back then, by a long shot. Re4. We barely even listed Nintendo games. We're listing just some good third-party stuff. Obviously, Wind Waker. I'm gonna have to flip my piece of paper. Wind Waker. I guess
Did we even mention Sunshine?
No. Sunshine. And then there's also Luigi's Mansion.
Sunshine's not a good game. We don't need to put that on.
Shut up.
That is true, but
wrong.
People are gonna want it on there.
You're wrong.
I agree with you, Brandon.
The game, if we go by review, it's still considered a quality game, and you're still wrong. Anyway.
Nah. Wind Waker. I'm sad that you had to say Wind Waker.
Let's cheat a little bit and include Twilight Princess. It was initially meant for GameCube. For GameCube.
I played it on GameCube.
Yeah, you could argue that one. I mean, it had normal controls, and it was an initial vision with the.
It was better because it wasn't flipped. Yeah.
The best cowboy, Mario Strikers. Good point. Mario Strikers is the greatest Mario sports game ever, besides the sequel on Wii.
Yeah.
We can't forget Melee either.
The greatest fighting game ever, besides Smash Ultimate.
I'm
gonna get some heat for that.
That's a take right there.
I'm gonna get some heat for that.
I don't know. I kind of prefer Wii U to Melee.
Paco Salvador, Pikmin 1 and 2. Have I said those yet? No.
I totally forgot about.
Holy crap! The list keeps coming, man.
Did you put Luigi's Mansion?
I said it. I put it on here. I said it right after Sunshine.
You know, it's a good game that gets overlooked a lot. Eternal Darkness.
Oh man, Eternal Darkness cannot be slept on.
That game is slept on, man. They gotta bring it back in some way.
Yeah. Rob saying Billy Hatcher and Geist and Piano 3. Those are all interesting.
I never played Geist.
Geist was... We could put it on the list, but I don't think it was considered to be a... You know what? We could qualify Geist like a Daemon X Machina sort of thing. It didn't review very well, but it was very interesting conceptually, right? Billy Hatcher, I barely remember, but I do remember somewhat. I'm putting on the list. Piano 3 was very interesting, for sure. Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn. Great one to bring up, Birdman.
Yeah.
I think it's Path of Radiance, because Radiant Dawn is the Wii one.
Okay, I just put FE. Yeah. There was a good Fire Emblem on GameCube.
Right, exactly. They're both good games too.
Javi Sorio, Baten Kaitos 1 and 2. That was made by Monolith, or I think at the time they changed their name. But anyway, this team became eventually at this time they were owned by Namco, I think. And they used to be part of Squaresoft, and now they're Monolith Soft under Nintendo. Like, Kaitos 1 and 2 were before Xenoblade. So just to put that out there. So yeah, Kaitos 1 and 2. I'm running out of paper. This is a folded up piece of paper, so.
Someone mentioned it in chat. So I'm
Wario World. We did mention Double Dash already.
Did we say Animal Crossing?
Oh, we did not mention Animal Crossing.
Yeah, Animal Crossing.
Holy crud. The list keeps building. I don't believe it. So I wasn't kidding.
Animal Crossing is technically cheating too, because wasn't that like originally released in Japan for like the N64?
Yeah, but it came out for us on the GameCube and visually. And
I count it either way.
Also,
it was a lot better on the GameCube.
Had retro games on there.
Yeah.
Best Cowboy brought up Pokemon Coliseum and Gale of Darkness. Those two great Pokemon games right there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Did we get Star Fox?
Yeah, we did. We got Star Fox.
Yeah.
Okay.
We got Star Fox. We got Star Fox. We got F-Zero GX. There's Sonic Adventure 2, right? Or did we get both of them? There was both. There was two of them, wasn't there?
We got both of them, right? I think so.
I don't remember. I'm gonna say at least one, and it was good. Also, there's something I know I'm missing things. Tales of Symphonia.
That's a good one, yeah. I was gonna say, how many Mario parties are there on?
I think there's 3. But just to keep the list like not like we don't want to like let's just say Mario Party. All encompassing.
Yeah.
But there was also there was Mario Baseball, which I had and I enjoyed back in the day, so I'll put Mario Baseball. All right. So, do you guys remember NBA Street? NBA Street Volume 3 on the GameCube had Mario, Luigi, Peach, and I'm not sure if there was a Yoshi, but there's at least 3 or 4 playable Nintendo characters in there. So I'm putting NBA Volume Street in there.
Nice.
Fine by me.
NBA Street Volume 3. I know I'm missing a lot, but
I'm like looking at my amiibos back here, trying to see if I can figure out another one.
I'm just Google.
Kirby Air Ride.
Kirby Air Ride.
Okay. Did we even mention Resident Evil 4?
Yes,
yeah,
we did. Of course we did.
Okay. I was about to say that'd been a sin.
There was another Zelda game we didn't mention. There was 4 Swords.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I know there's more. There's definitely more. Custom Robo, good one to bring up, Hobby Sword. Custom Robo. You see what I'm saying
Chibi
though? Like
Robo.
there's just so many like really good or interesting games. Oh, Cubivore.
It was Beyond Good and Evil wasn't exclusive to it, but it had that game.
But it was better on GameCube. Also, Time Splitters was a good port on there as well.
What about I don't even remember if this was exclusive or not, but I remember everyone really liked it back then. Beautiful Joe.
Beautiful Joe 1 and 2. I think it was a timed exclusive, or it was like not on Xbox at least, so it was partial exclusive. There is a good list. Shadow the Hedgehog, good one to bring up. DE Fox. Like, we are cheating a little bit with some of the multiplats, but they were like multiplats that were really good on the GameCube that people really liked. We mentioned Twin Snakes already. Oh, Donkey Konga, and then 2, and then Jungle Beat. So I'm just gonna put DK 3 times, cause yeah.
Nice.
Man, this list, I don't know what that is. Oh, this is actually a paper that says I got a negative COVID test a few weeks ago. So, good, but I don't need the paper anymore. So, Sonic Heroes? I don't even remember Sonic Heroes. Crazy Taxi? Because there was actually a lot of Dreamcast games that got ported over to GameCube later on, which was pretty nice. And on that note, you also mentioned... There's another one. Skies of Arcadia, good one, Rob. The list keeps coming. There's just so many really good games on GameCube. Just insane. Dance Dance Revolution. You know what? Fine. It's not my cup of tea, but I'll put it on there. Why not? If we were going to talk about the Switch lineup, we would put 1-2 Switch, right? So it's fair. Was Simpsons Hit and Run considered a good one? I don't remember.
I know people really liked it.
I think it was.
Okay, I'm putting it on there. And on that note, there were probably a few good licensed games. We mentioned the Star Wars ones already. There was also... maybe Lord of the Rings doesn't deserve to be on the list.
Did we mention Harvest Moon?
No, we did not mention Harvest Moon. Harvest Moon. I love how, like, the list just keeps coming. Like, you guys are putting out names, and I don't know if I don't remember some of these. Like, Sonic Heroes. Is that the racing game? Or is that Sonic Riders? Which I think also came out on GameCube.
Sonic Heroes was not a
the one
racing
where you had, like, 3 characters at the same time you'd be playing as, right?
Was that considered a good one? I don't remember.
I mean, I don't really play many Sonic
there
games.
was a couple
The only
Sonic
thing I know
spin-offs
about
that were
Sonic
good.
Heroes
I'm
is
just gonna
the
put
theme
Sonic
song,
spin-off.
because it's really catchy.
And there could be 1 or 2 that were really good. Sonic Riders, yeah. There's just so many. Yeah, Rob, would have been great to have you on. Splinter Cell, right? There's Splinter Cell, at least a couple of those. I'll just put 1 just because. Like, I'm kind of like intentionally skipping out on some. Phantasy Star Online, that definitely deserves to be on here. There's just a ridiculous amount, and I've definitely excluded some games. We put Kirby Air Ride.
I see Super Chris mentioning Pac-Man World 2. I did play that. That game was pretty good. It's like a 3D platformer.
Fine, Pac-Man World 2 can get on too.
I got you. I got it in the list.
It made it past my list. Check. I saw some, Birdman put Wario World. Did I write down Wario World? All right. So
That's actually
there's probably others we've missed, but all right. So the point I was trying to make was that imagine if at least one high quality, memorable game that people were talking about, that kind of dominated the social media space for about a month, came out every month during the Switch life cycle for 5 straight years. So 12 times 5, which is 60. Math. Yes, it's 60.
Yeah.
I'm not that stupid. So, all right. I just started writing randomly on a sheet of paper. So, let's see. Where did I start? Okay, I went like left, right, down, up, down, diagonally. So there's not an order here, but I'll just start from left to right of this page and then the next page. All right, so Twilight Princess. Who's gonna count for me? Brandon, please.
I'll count.
Twilight Princess. Okay. Mario Strikers, Melee, Pikmin, Pikmin 2, Eternal Darkness, Geist.
Wait. Start over.
Okay.
You can't just speed up all of a sudden.
Okay.
You know.
Ready? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Twilight Princess, Mario Strikers, Melee, Pikmin 1, 2, Eternal Darkness, Geist, Billy Hatcher, Piano 3, Fire Emblem, Baten Kaitos 1, 2. You good so far? What are we at?
12.
Okay, that's a whole year. All right, so Soul Calibur 2, Paper Mario, Killer 7, Monkey Ball 2. There may have been a third, but we're skipping it just for the sake of argument. Wave Race Blue Storm, F-Zero GX, Metroid Prime, obviously, Metroid Prime 2, Rogue Squadron, and then there was another one. Star Fox Assault, Mario Kart Double Dash, Star Fox Adventures, Resident Evil 0, Twin Snakes, at least one Resident Evil remake that was really good. Resident Evil 4,
30.
Wind Waker, Sunshine, Luigi's Mansion. What are we at so far?
34.
34. Wario World, Animal Crossing, Pokemon Coliseum, Gale of Darkness. There's at least one Sonic Adventure game. I think there may have been 2, but we're just putting 1 for the sake of argument. Tale of Symphonia, Mario Party. There's apparently like 4 Mario Parties, but we're just putting 1 for now. There was a Mario baseball game. There is NBA Street, Kirby Air Ride. There's a Zelda game, 4 Swords. We already mentioned a couple Zelda games, right? But there's another one that was 4 Swords. Custom Robo, Cubivore, Beyond Good and Evil, Time Splitters, Beautiful Joe, then the sequel, Shadow the Hedgehog, Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, Donkey Konga. Yeah, Donkey Konga 2. Where are we at now? Brandon's dead. Brandon can't go past 40.
It was an overload. It was too much, and he's done.
What are we at, Brandon?
Oh, my Wi-Fi did a thing.
Oh.
Last time I counted for like 55 or something.
What was the last thing you heard me say?
Donkey Konga, maybe?
Did you hear me say Donkey Konga 2?
I don't think so.
Okay, Donkey Konga 2. So 56. Crazy Taxi, Skies of Arcadia, a DDR game, or I don't know how many of those there were. Apparently there's a good Simpsons hit and run game. Harvest Moon. There was multiple Sonic spin-offs, so I'm just counting it as one, but there's a couple really good ones. There's a couple good Splinter Cell games, but just counting it as one as well. I think, apparently there's 2 Phantasy Star Onlines, I'm only counting it as one for the sake of argument. And Pac-Man World 2 apparently was also there. So that puts us, like, definitely past 60, and there's definitely others we're leaving out.
Something?
There's definitely others that we're leaving out. So, you get my point, though. Like, there are games we definitely absolutely left out. But that is a stellar lineup of games, and there's more than one quality game
Pretty good.
that was out per month. The GameCube didn't last that long. It came out 2001, and the Nintendo Wii came out 2006, so it had a 5-year cycle. So there was quality content throughout that generation. But I remember people talking about there being droughts. I remember the GameCube getting a lot of flack. I remember, there's sales. This GameCube just did not perform well. Why? I know why. It was just it was a big marketing problem.
Yeah.
First of all, PlayStation 2 came out earlier. It came out 2000, and it completely stole the market. There was already a lot of momentum from the 90s with the PS1. It had already stolen a big part of the market share, but then with the PS2, it was a DVD player first for a lot of people. It was a cheap DVD player that also played games, and PlayStation 2 has also gone down in history as having a stellar lineup as well. Tons and tons of games, more than the GameCube. There's so many, including the Grand Theft Auto games, for example.
We found about 65 games, but we were looking at any good, even good game for GameCube at all, for the most part, and we got a lot of them. Because not every game on that list, Shadow the Hedgehog was on that list, and that game was pretty trash. So it's not like every game on that list was amazing or anything, you know?
They're remembered fondly.
All there was. That was we pretty much listed the entire.
No, there's others we didn't mention. For example, I'm gonna give you a couple more right now. Odama. There is also Battalion Wars. I could think of a few more. But they're those are Nintendo games. There's more. I did say Soul Calibur 2 Shadow. I did. There are more games. There is a Prince of Persia games. Good point, Julius Martin. There was a lot of good games on the GameCube. We have not said everything on that list was not everything. We just added 5 more just there. So, or 4 or something. There's a lot. Absolutely a lot. Killer 7 was one of the first ones we mentioned. But yeah, the big the big reason why GameCube failed is because Nintendo sucked at marketing. And the PS2 just dominated. It had so much momentum, so many games, and it was also the cheapest DVD player on the market. So it was a DVD player, and that was a big deal back then. The Nintendo could not compete. Not to mention, it didn't have online, and even though it did have a good library of games, there were a lot of third parties that didn't get on GameCube. Or there was missing features or something because the discs were small, so they couldn't hold as much storage. Third parties did not like that, and then the whole online issue was an issue. So there were certainly limitations there that did not bode well in the gamer space, the conversation there. It was considered largely a kiddie console, so a lot of people didn't buy into the GameCube, even though, as we discussed, there is a stellar lineup, and a lot of games, or most of the games we talked about, are looked upon quite fondly now. I would argue that the GameCube has, like I feel like the GameCube is more cherished now than the PS2 was. Like the GameCube kind of has aged very gracefully. Because something about the GameCube that's really neat is that because of those smaller discs, it loaded so quickly. So like playing GameCube was actually like a very quick and fun experience. You could just jump right into your games. But like you go on to play on a PlayStation 2, it's like chugging, like because it's got to load. And that all slows it down. And I think PS2s were also not nearly as sturdy as GameCubes. Like GameCubes have lasted a lot longer. Like those things, they make a difference. And I think that you could make the argument this is less objective, but a lot of people feel like the GameCube controllers are very ergonomic. Like they feel really comfortable. I mean, there's a huge community of Smash players that will live and die by the GameCube controller. The GameCube controller is the most used like retro controller there is, pretty much, right? And it's purely because of Smash Brothers, but it's still something that people like to use even now. Nintendo has remade GameCube controllers because people love them. So, I think the GameCube is, I don't know. I feel like it deserves to be in the conversation for the system that has aged most gracefully throughout history. Like, I can't think of another system that has aged so gracefully and is more appreciated now than it was in the past.
I'm trying to think of a system. I'm genuinely trying to think of a system. Like, I don't think I can.
Now, one thing to take into consideration is that we are a bubble, right, of Nintendo fans. Yeah. So there's certainly bias here, right? But I also feel like, a lot of this bubble still has a lot of overlap with fans from other systems. Like, I appreciate the other games from other systems, and I know a lot of you guys in the chat have as well. And Brandon, Shifty, I know you guys as well, right? And like, I don't feel like you guys disagree with the points I'm making here. Like, GameCube has had is just really appreciated now. Like, you don't see these kind of conversations happening for PS2 and Xbox as much. Am I mistaken in saying that? And this is anecdotal, right? Like, we don't have objective evidence to prove this. This is a very highly opinionated conversation. So
I mean, the PS2 is still pretty highly regarded, and I know that there's a good emulation scene for it, and I've seen a lot of Digital Foundry content on the PlayStation 1 and the PlayStation 2 stuff still.
Yeah, and it's not to take away anything from the PS2. The PS2 is like one of the greatest selling systems of all time.
I love playing Ratchet and Clank.
Huge library on there. Yeah, Ratchet and Clank were great. The Grand Theft Auto games are great. Like, there's a lot on there.
I would say
tons of RPGs.
If I talk about like my gaming, like growing up gaming and playing different systems, honestly, like there's a little bit of love for like the Xbox 360 in the community of Xbox, just because of like I was like I want to say like that was probably like the hype for like the Xbox brand at the time. And then since then, it kind of been kind of rocky throughout the years. So I feel like they have, and if you go to Xbox circles, I'm pretty sure like they would have a lot of love for that system. And for the OG Xbox, like for me, I have the most nostalgia for, in terms of that generation, GameCube and Xbox. Those are the two I have the most mostly because GameCube let me play with friends, like in person, have them over, play Mario Party, whatever. Yeah. It's like and Xbox is the same, far away.
I love Halo.
Yeah,
right.
Halo and Melee were the games that we would hide out when we were supposed to be playing outside. We were playing Halo and Melee all day. Like, that's what we did.
Right, yeah. And then
Splinter Cell was also amazing on Xbox.
Yeah, that's a good one too, yeah.
I remember Hitman.
I never played Hitman.
Ninja Gaiden. Or Gaiden. I say Gaiden. Ninja Gaiden was really good on Xbox.
Yeah. I think the only other system that could probably like challenge the GameCube in terms of like how much people loved it but didn't love it back then is the Dreamcast.
Yeah. But the thing about the GameCube is that like half the Dreamcast library is poured over to GameCube.
But there's
arguably it's pretty much always in the top 5 list for like Dreamcast like games. Soul Calibur, the better one, Soul Calibur 2, is on GameCube. So like that Soul Calibur isn't on GameCube though, so that there's that. But like Crazy Taxi's on there. We got at least one of the Sonic Adventure games ported over. It could be both, and I'm sorry if my memory is not amazing with that. We just talked about like 70 games.
They have a port like Power Stone and like
I don't
Shenmue
know.
was like a couple.
Well, Skies of Arcadia though was initially a Dreamcast game too, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
there is a lot there. Interesting little fun fact: Sega and Xbox at the time almost had a merger because Dreamcast was actually experimenting with online play before Xbox Live, and they were working with Microsoft on that. And there was before Xbox happened, like there was discussions about them doing a merger. Had that happened, it would have been a very different game, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. You still would have seen the whole Sonic and Mario rivalry be much stronger, because you would still have like all the Sega like fanboys back in the day would have just jumped ship to Xbox at that point.
Yeah.
And just become like, why would I buy a GameCube when I have an Xbox? But that didn't really end up happening, and for the most part, that just kind of happened towards Nintendo, like since we got Sonic Adventure and all that.
Right.
But it would have been very different.
By the way, and we got both Sonic Adventures on GameCube.
Yeah. So
yeah, I mean that would have dramatically impacted the GameCube library. That's for sure. Like Sega was responsible for a lot of high quality stuff back then. I mean, we were talking about it earlier. The greatest racing game of all time, F-Zero GX. Like Sega published that. I mean, Nintendo did too, but it was a joint effort. It's a big deal. Real big deal. Man. And then there's a Monkey Ball. Like, there's some quality stuff. Like, oh. Yeah, if Sega was, like, only by Xbox, there would have been a lot of... The GameCube would have been screwed. It would have been bad. I mean, Nintendo probably would have done something to adjust for that, but... Like, they probably still would have made an F-Zero. They would have gone with a different developer, but maybe that developer wouldn't have been as good. Or maybe it would have been better, and Nintendo would have had more F-Zeros. I don't know. Like, it's hard to tell how history could have gone, right? But
yeah,
it'd just be a completely different story.
We could have had an alternate timeline where it would be like Xbox, Sega versus Nintendo, PlayStation.
Yeah, what if Nintendo and Sony like joined together to compete? That would have been very interesting.
That almost happened too, so it's like...
Yeah, that did almost happen years beforehand, right?
Yeah.
And
so
then
it would have been a really weird timeline.
Yeah, it would have been... It was kind of cool. Like, I would have loved the idea of that. Like, especially, like, imagine, like... I mean, because if Nintendo was willing to do the DVD thing, like, Square Enix would have been on board with Nintendo systems, right? Like if Nintendo and Sony worked together, they probably would have had a better online platform. They would have had better media set up. The third-party support would have been there. So you would have had like this system that would have played your Zeldas and your Marios, but it would have also had online play. It would have had Grand Theft Auto on there. It would have had Final Fantasy on there. Like it would have been Resident Evil would have. I mean, it was already. Yeah, that was already like a lot of Capcom games were already kind of like on both systems at the time, so that wouldn't have changed too much. It would have just been like we made it for one platform, so maybe it would have had a little bit more effort put into it. Actually, I don't know, but there's a lot. There's a lot. It could have been awesome.
The right now the competition mostly is like PlayStation versus Xbox. Like that's how most people look at it. But that could have been a lot bigger. It could have been like Nintendo versus Sega again, but with Sony and
Sony and Microsoft like sort of holding them up from a foundation because they're like the really big companies, but like the IPs and like the figurehead point, like the spirit would be Nintendo and Sega. Like that would have been so interesting. That's a really like interesting point to kind of bring up. That if that's the direction history had went, it would still be Sony versus Microsoft, but they would have been more souped up with like Nintendo and like Sega powering them up. It would have been crazy. Yeah. It would have been like they took both tower earrings and did or fusion dance, and they were just permanently fused like Nintendo, PlayStation, and then like Sega, Xbox. That would have been. We're hardcore fanboying right now. We haven't mentioned any topics, so now I will address the chat. Hello, chat. How are you guys doing tonight? I hope you guys are well. I mean, obviously we were kind of like talking about the game, like, you know, just going over a list of games here, but I hope everyone is doing well tonight. Please make sure to check out both Shifty and Brandon's channel. They are linked in the description below. If you could like the stream and maybe share it, that'd be great. Last 2 weeks that we've come back, we were able to hit 100 plus concurrent viewers. If we did it a third time in a row, I don't know. Maybe. We're around 80 right now, which is pretty solid. But we'll see. A lot of people in the chat. Thank you everyone for coming by. Let me see here. Nishant Kilcar added me. Hey man, I started Xenoblade 2 this weekend and I found your old combat guides from 3 years ago and they really helped me out. I'm glad that even though they were old and I was probably sloppier then, that they have still been useful for you. Because Xenoblade 2's combat is definitely a lot to wrap your head around. Back then, I definitely had to do a lot of research to figure it out, because it was certainly a lot to figure it out. But once you do, the game is amazing. Let's see here. Yeah, there's a lot of discussion on the different games. I know I didn't put everyone's mention in the list. Birdman, we did get The Simpsons in there. Supercross Legend of Spyro. We did not put Legend of Spyro in there. I did not remember that one. Pitfall, I didn't put that in there. I didn't put the Lego Star Wars in there either. Yeah, there's a lot of games. But let's transition. We were talking about Sega. I think that's a good starting point. Just for the record, we're gonna get into the direct rumors and the Game Boy stuff a little bit later. We've touched on it in the weeks beforehand, even though there weren't rumors about it, just because, we've been talking about Game Boy games coming to Nintendo Switch Online for well over a year already, and we've always talked about there being a direct in September. We're going to get to that, but I want to talk about the Sonic Color situation because, well, we were just talking about Sega, so I feel like it's a pretty solid segue, and it was a planned topic for tonight. So, this is kind of like an ongoing topic. Like, there's still information coming out. We're still learning. So, this discussion we're having now may not age as well because we'll see how things turn out. They may patch it really soon, and it'll work out beautifully. Because I've seen some reviews, and they don't even really mention that there's glitches, so which is weird. But then you look at social media, and you just see videos left and right and clips and shots of seizure-inducing imagery and Sonic and Tails mashing together in abomination of it's a travesty. It's disgusting. Like, you don't know what's going on because the game is just glitching out everywhere. If you don't know, Sonic Colors Ultimate is a remaster of a really, really good 3D Sonic game that came out on Nintendo Wii. Arguably the best 3D Sonic game. It's definitely up there. It's a very highly regarded Sonic game. Like, all they had to do was upscale it to HD. That's all they had to do. Like, if they did with Nintendo with Skyward Sword, it would have been fine. People would have probably complained about it, but it would have done fine. I don't know how they screwed this up. But they did. They ruined one of the best Sonic games ever, apparently. I don't know how, but they did. I think they wanted to do a little bit more extra work to the visuals, probably. So maybe there's some tomfoolery there.
The game looks a bit better. I just can't believe it doesn't run at 60 FPS on Switch. Like, how do you remaster a Wii game and every other version can run at 60, but a Wii game remaster can't run at 60 on Switch? What is this? How does that compute? I feel like it should be able to run easy, right? Like, they barely did anything to the game.
I don't know much about like the game itself, considering that I'm not really a fan of Sonic, so I don't really play the games myself. But I did hear good things about the original game. But when I was looking into like the Twitter thread of multiple Twitter threads of people talking about like what might have happened to this game, they were saying that there was something to do with like the original game having some kind of like code or something related to Nintendo, that Nintendo had their hand in it in some way. I don't know if it was code. I might be remembering it wrong.
Nintendo pixie dust.
Let's go with that. They sprayed pixie dust all over the game. And because of that, apparently the studio that Sega had to like take care of this game had to tweak the game to not have that in there and do something else. Considering it's not a Switch exclusive game. Like it's releasing on multiple platforms.
Right.
So maybe that's what I had to do. Like maybe by them taking that out and having to like replace that code with something else, maybe they messed it up.
Let me clarify something. Because there has been like a lot of footage put out there on social media that has perhaps been a little misleading.
Right.
The game is still playable. There's just a noticeable amount of more glitches than there used to be. Right. So it's not to say the game is like completely broken based off what you may be seeing on social media. But
for the record, I haven't seen anything on social media. Nothing. None of this glitches. I watched Nintendo Life's review. They didn't mention any glitches.
No.
I didn't know anything about this until like right before the podcast, and I was like, oh.
I did see some of it myself, but to add on to what you were saying, Andres, apparently I don't know if it's how many people, but apparently some of the footage out there was not played on an actual Switch and was rather played on an emulator,
which is just mind-boggling stupid. Like you can't judge a game's performance on a system when it's not being performed on the system.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I believe the original tweet of what I don't remember what it was. It was like someone's account was saying that they were asking if this is like a glitch that other people have had, and I believe originally they didn't say that they were playing on an emulator, but you do see like a mouse cursor at some point in the gameplay. So keep in mind, it's still a buggy game. We're not saying that the bugs are only from that emulation software.
But the emulation made it look worse.
Yeah, like there was some glitches that were a lot worse that were from the emulator, like gameplay being recorded. But that doesn't mean that it's not buggy. Like there's still bugs about like saves being corrupted.
So
and, like,
there's a report out that apparently Nintendo is issuing refunds on the game. Nintendo doesn't issue refunds.
Very rare. Very rare.
Is Nintendo Cyberpunk? Oh no.
Nintendo did not. Nintendo didn't sign off on this. But yeah, it's kind of like that. So what bothers me though is that like Sonic Colors is one of my favorite games on Nintendo Wii. So to see it come out and for it to be worse is very disappointing. And also when the system is running poorly is a Switch, which probably should have been the most important version, I would say, right? Like games sell really well on Switch. It was initially a Nintendo Wii exclusive. It's just disappointing as a longtime Nintendo fan and Sonic fan. It is disappointing to see that this is glitchy. But to D Fox's point in the chat, there probably could be a day one patch that will address a lot of these issues. So hopefully, these issues are addressed. But like I saw like Game Explain's video, and there's just a lot of glitches happening in gameplay. Some of which, it just happens naturally, and others they show that you'd have to do certain steps to achieve. But I heard that the way to do it is just by going in and out of the menu, selecting maps, and so basically it's something that could be easily replicated. Basically, there could be some people who could run into that accidentally if they're just like selecting a lot of things really quickly. That's not promising. Now the game hasn't come out yet. I think it's come out later this week, or soon, right? So let me double check that. I gotta fact check myself. Sonic Color. Sorry, I was busy at work all day, so I couldn't research as much as I wanted to. Sonic Color's ultimate release date is never. It's never coming out. That's what Google told me. November 11, 2010. Yeah, it's coming out. It's coming out later this week, September 7th. In a couple days.
2 days.
Yeah. The game's $40, so there's that. But I hope that patch fixes everything 100%.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I mean this was a beautiful game, and it's disappointing to see that the Switch version doesn't seem to have been given as much polish and focus as I think it deserves.
I just would never get the Switch version since it's only 30 FPS. Why would I play a fast
I would say that
platformer at anything less than 60 when every other platform is at 60?
that is also an L. I will give you that, and I think it should be 60. I mean, look at Skyward Sword HD, that's 60.
Yeah, Skyward Sword HD is 60.
Skyward HD, it can be done, and Skyward Sword HD isn't like pushing the Switch hardware to the limit. This is a Wii.
No, but neither
game.
is. They're both Wii games that were pushing the.
This is purely like them just choosing not to do appropriate optimization. So that's disappointing. Again, I'm not a developer. I don't understand all the finer details of this, but like, it's a Wii game. It can be done. It can be done.
They just slap on a couple new textures and some new lighting effects, and that was about it.
Who worked on the remaster? Who was the developers? It wasn't Sega. It was like some other team.
Yeah, there's a separate team that made the Switch version. I forget the name, but apparently they have a history of doing terrible ports. Sonic Color's Ultimate.
Are they cheap then? Is that what it was?
Probably.
Like, did they have to
Blind Squirrel?
Yeah, if they have a history of doing bad ports,
Blind
like
Squirrel. Yeah.
Blind Squirrel.
Yeah.
I gotta see their history now, because if they have a history of constantly putting out bad ports, then other than maybe their work being cheap, I don't see why you would use them. I don't know. I mean, again, we're not developers, so I'm not gonna sit here and tell you like, oh, I can do a better job. But like, if there's a history to it, you know what I mean? Like, it seems.
I don't know their full history, so I don't want to. I've just heard.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
apparently
that's what I'm saying.
They worked on the BioShock collection, Sunset Overdrive port, Borderlands Game of the Year edition, Mass Effect Legendary Edition.
They worked on The Sims 4, Civilization 2, XCOM 2,
Those
Prey,
sound like
Elder Scrolls.
It doesn't sound bad.
It doesn't. It sounds like a solid resume.
Yeah. It sounds like a. Yeah, I don't think I could blame Sega for going to that team if that's the case.
I don't know.
I mean, they messed up. That's still, the case.
Yeah.
But from what it sounds like,
it's an in-house game engine for Sonic Colors Ultimate on the Switch.
They ported BioShock, Sunset Overdrive.
Yeah. I don't know, but they dumb fucked up. That was
Yeah.
I mean, hey, everyone, hits a blunder every once in a while. You can have a perfect record.
Yeah.
Right?
And again, maybe they patch it and fix it, but I guess the thing is, when you have like this social media storm and it impacts people's perception of the game, it's gonna hurt sales. If you come out, of the gate stumbling, you're probably not gonna win the race. Like there needs to be a heroic effort, an amazing, miraculous, heroic effort to win a race when you stumble out the gates. Usually it doesn't happen. And then to Brandon's point, the game's not even 60 FPS to begin with. Like, that's... You know what you need to do, Blind Squirrel? You need to, like, get a 60 FPS patch with non-glitchiness, out ASAP. You do that, then maybe, like, you can kind of turn the tables here. But otherwise, I don't know. Paco Salvador is saying that they did WWE 2K or 2K18, and I think I heard that was really bad.
Okay, yeah, that's a bad.
So they're bad at doing. They have a history of doing bad Switch ports.
Oh, it's a Switch port specifically.
Well, I think those games are just trash in general, but especially on Switch, those games are horrid.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Definitely unfortunate. But I do kind of want to use this as a pivoting point to kind of talk about something, because I finished No More Heroes 3 this week. Shifty, I know you said you're working on multiple Suda51 games at the same time for your own personal experience, which I do think is very interesting.
I'm actually still playing through. I have it here, funny enough. Still playing through the Silver Case.
Okay.
Actually, no. I just recently beat it, and now just to continue the story, because they never actually made a game for the third written story of it. I have the actual manga here, the way I'm supposed to read it and find out what happens next. So.
That is super interesting. You know, I actually learned recently that Suda51 worked with the writer for the boys on No More Heroes 3.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, right? And especially because the fake title of the game was goddamn superheroes, right? So like there's definitely a theme of like false superheroes, right? Pretending to be good guys but not really being good guys. It's pretty cool. But
it reminds me that he also, for Lollipop Chainsaw, he worked with James Gunn as writers. So
it's working with some very creative people.
Suda has connections. He has connections.
Yeah.
He doesn't look like, and it's very impressive when you consider the fact that Grasshopper, his like development team, isn't even that big of a team. It's a very small team if you actually look into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to see him be given a big team. Like, I would love it if Nintendo like, hey, we want No More Heroes to be a bigger deal. Because the reason I brought this up now is because perhaps the biggest complaint No More Heroes 3 has, and it's a fair complaint, is its performance. The fights are fine. Graphics. It holds a solid frame rate, but it is very clear that they didn't have a massive budget behind this game, right?
That game doesn't hold a solid frame rate during any moment.
The open world segments are pretty bad.
Rough. Yeah, rough.
Bad.
Yeah.
Like, it's all playable. It's all playable. But there are a lot of moments where the game kind of stops for a moment. Not like during combat, it's all fine. Like, the combat runs smooth. It's not like an issue there. So like the most important parts of the game all run beautifully fine. Like the good story beats are all told well.
They run at an uncapped frame rate, which is playable. It's not bad. It's not like sub 30s, you know, like it's like unplayable frame rates. It's just not consistent.
Yeah. I didn't notice any issues during the main important parts, but like whenever you would load into a map, like the game would start blurry like for a second, and it did sort of like a pixelization effect, so it kind of like works. But there is a chugging that happens when you start like a level, and then the open world areas, there are parts where the textures wouldn't load in. Like I did the first time I did the mining minigame. I thought the cave areas were just like complete booty, like duty booty. Like it was disgusting. The textures were legitimately like N64 textures. And I was like, is this right? And I just like explored around for minutes.
The game looks like it came out a generation ago.
Well,
like it looks like it should have been on the Wii U or like the PS3.
The thing is, it's inconsistent.
I guess that'd be 2 generations.
That's the problem with it. There are parts that look really good, and there are other parts that just look really bad. I
think some parts just have better art direction. Other parts you can see the technical limitations easier.
Yes and no. Like there's straight up parts that just have a higher clean resolution than others. Like it's like there are parts that are blurry and there are parts that are just sharp. But just want to finish my point about the minigame thing though. The first time I played it, it was all the textures looked like N64 textures, like the cave walls, and I was like, it's just how cave walls look in this game. But then I died, then I did the level again, and it loaded up, and I was like, oh, this looks fine now. Not like amazing, but it was like, oh, it was no longer N64 textures. Like the textures just refused to load for an entire playthrough of a minigame one time. So, you know, there are issues with like performance and the open world segments, and there are parts that are like when you drive around that it doesn't, you're not sure if that should be a wall or not. Like they are fair criticisms. But even though there were all those performance issues, even though there are a lot of parts of the game that visually are rough, I loved the heck out of No More Heroes 3. Like, I had quite the enjoyable experience from this. It is one of my favorite games of the year. I thought it was an incredible experience. If you're like someone who's into just like really weird, like if you're into The Boys, right? If you're into like Tarantino films, like if you're into previous Suda51 games, you're gonna be super into this. Like, it's cool. It's cool for a lot of different reasons, because like it pulls from a lot of different like pieces of culture. It pulls from like American culture and superhero comics and stuff like that, but also pulls from like very like avant-garde like films. It also pulls from anime, right? It pulls from video game culture. It pulls from like that very like that desire for like very like punk like style and attitude and angst, and it pulls it all together. And it seems random, but it's kind of very beautifully told, I think. And it's just it's quite an experience. Like I was very excited, but I don't want to spoil it, but it was very nice for me.
I'm curious though, like, because I don't remember if you've mentioned it or not before, but what have you played the other No More Heroes games before this?
I haven't finished No More Heroes game before. I was playing through 1 a few months ago, and I'm probably gonna go back and finish it now and then go to 2. So I had some experience with them, but not a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've never played any of them.
In general, I've only asked because I'm like just really ecstatic about the attention. Some of the like the criticisms included with like No More Heroes 3 right now, because I remember like a year ago I would be on this podcast and be the only one who mentions No More Heroes 3 as like the big thing that I want to play, and I'm just really happy to see that No More Heroes is kind of getting like a lot more of a spotlight than it ever did before, because to my knowledge, I don't remember Nintendo. I mean, again, this was a long time ago on the Wii, but I don't remember Nintendo really pushing No More Heroes before. And now that they gave it like a whole social media push, they really advertised it this time, and now I'm seeing like a lot of people playing No More Heroes for the first time, like really, like some for the first time, some they're big fans like myself, and I'm just really happy to see like the game growing in the popularity that it has been this entire time. And what I think is really cool is just the fact that this started out as like a niche title. Right? Yeah, this was like that unknown punk like game that was like that existed on the Wii that some people knew and most only really heard through like word of mouth. And seeing it become what it is now is like that's like a massive deal to me. And I also want to like just point out something too that what meant a lot to me personally is that in No More Heroes 3, there's a specific song that plays whenever you go to the sushi shop, right? Anyone who's played the game knows that game is dope. Like it's probably my favorite song in the whole game right now. The
beats is
and
I was bopping to it.
I have to say this because the guys behind that song, Akumura, they actually did my song on my YouTube channel. They are the same people who made the song for my YouTube channel whenever like, people hear the outro and whatnot. So I want to make sure that like if anyone's interested, they should check out Akumura. Maybe I don't know if it's possible for me to link them in any way, but they are still working on new projects now. And they actually, I think one of the first songs I ever heard from them.
I think I can share a link. If you can, I can.
Yeah, I think one of their first songs. Send it to me on
Twitter. I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah, I want to shout them out because they did me a big solid making that song for me on my channel, and now they're officially working on No More Heroes 3 music, and that's super cool to me. So
yeah. No, that's really awesome.
So I want to make sure that they get the proper the credit and the hype.
I noticed this a long time ago because I knew where it was from. But whenever you do the charge with your sword, which is a fapping motion, just for the record, like that is 100% intentional. If you ever wondered if it was just it's intentional.
It's intentional.
Yeah, like No More Heroes 1 and 2, like they went into the whole, this game is geared towards like dudes in their teens and 20s that are just like dorks. Yeah. That's exactly what it is. But the sound it makes, you use that in your videos.
Yeah. And it's funny that sound effect also is not just from No More Heroes. It's actually like a sound that like Suda51 has used before. Grasshopper's first game was actually the Silver Case, and I think it came out in like 1999. And for that game, when they would have like these light puzzle solving elements, and when you solve a puzzle, it would make that same sound effect.
I'm now posting the link here, so for those who want to check that out, I just posted a link. And people who watch the replay, if you put on the chat replay, you should be able to see that link. But
they should have a link on their Twitter after all that like has like everything that's related to them. So you can check out their music, you can buy their music, whatever it is, just support them because they supported me and they did great stuff on No More Heroes 3. So if you enjoy their stuff, you maybe
their Twitter handle is at RPCFP Okumura. And you spell Okumura Okumura.
Yeah.
That's really cool though that happened. That's super interesting.
Yeah.
But it's great music. It was great music.
It's the best song in the game, I swear. So I mean, they've been good people to me, so I'm just kind of really excited to see not just No More Heroes grow, but see, you know, guys that I've known since before they even worked on the game to, you know, move on to do that. So it's just really cool in general. Like, the game is great as itself, but the fact that, you know, that's also happening behind it makes it even, you know, more important to me.
Yeah. And you know, the reason why I brought up No More Heroes 3 now is, one, because it's still fresh, but also I don't want to say that performance is the be all end all for a game, because I still had a really, really good experience with No More Heroes 3 despite all those issues. Now, part of that is because those issues aren't in the most important parts of the game. The most important parts of the game run relatively fine. It visually holds up fairly well. It's not that bad. I wouldn't even call it bad. It's fine. There's a lot of pretty stuff. Like, aesthetically speaking, the game is very pretty. I understand from technical perspective it may not be, but aesthetically the game looks very nice. And there's just a beautiful mind behind this game, or a series of beautiful minds behind this game. There's some really cool stuff, and I guess it's just one of those things where, like, if you were into anime, if you were into comic books, if you were into video games, including Nintendo, you play this game, you get to that end, you're gonna be like, that was really cool. Like, it's just a really, really cool experience. And they use a lot of different art styles at different points to tell different parts of the story, and it may feel really random, and it kind of is. It's kind of the point, but there's still, like, there's something about it that just feels, it compels you. It's powerful stuff, I think.
Yeah, there's a really wacky charm with Suda51 games. Like, if you pick up a Suda51 game, you're not in for a very normal gaming experience.
No,
it's very
not
like, they're
normal.
usually very flawed games. They're usually very flawed, but you're getting an experience that, like, is not common within gaming as a whole, which is why I follow his games so closely. You know, I don't know, it just feels like it's not, like, replicated often.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't played anything quite like No More Heroes 3, I'll say that. So, it's a very, like, I don't want to spoil anything, because there's just a lot of good stuff there. This is just some cool stuff there, and there's a lot of fourth wall breaking too, which I really love. There is a moment where the game kind of makes fun of itself too. There's a point where Travis goes down to save, but it's like, it makes you think it's just an automatic save, but it's actually like a cutscene. And Travis is like, why is the save stuck? What is going on here? What sort of shitty R&D team allowed this game to be greenlit and go out there to be gold, to be played by people? Who would pay for this shit? Like, he would use his terminology was something along those lines, and it's just wonderful. It's just wonderful to see that. And then what happens next is, I'm not going to say that because it's just crazy, but it's really cool stuff. So I honestly, like, even though there's a lot of performance issues, I think the game's awesome. Like, if you're into action games or any of the other weird stuff I mentioned, you're gonna enjoy this game. I think it's something great. You just have to be willing to get past some of the performance stuff. And I will say, it is enough to be annoying. It isn't like you can just overlook it. It is something that you'll be like, well, that's dumb. I'm on the beach and it looks like yeah, that is a thing. And sometimes exploring the map can be a little annoying. Like, that, those are facts. But I don't think it was to the point that it stops you from progressing. It's just kind of like more like minor annoyances that, you know, I think will absolutely impact the review scores, and they have. for some people, those are like, how dare this game have that? This is unplayable. It's not true. It's absolutely playable. But, for some people, they are very particular about those performance issues. But I think the special thing about No More Heroes 3 is that despite those glaring performance issues, it's still a really good, beautiful experience. And what it does make me think, as we sort of alluded to earlier, like, what if there was like a bigger team behind this? Like, what if there was that polish, that funding, that size of a team, that ambition? Like, I mean, No More Heroes could be an even bigger deal,
Didn't Suda51 say that No More Heroes 2 is going to be the last one?
Not really.
He tends to go back and forth on that. Like, he treats it like it is, but there's multiple quotes of him saying, like, oh, he has plans for No More Heroes 4. He's mentioned like 2 different ideas of what a No More Heroes 4 could look like. And there was also the quote of him saying, like, this would be the last one for 10 years, and then he'll go back and do it again.
Yeah, there was a Game Explainer interview a month ago of that. And also, if you play through to the end of the game, there are strong implications of more beyond it. So,
okay,
I don't know if that means DLC. I don't know if that's just to screw with you, which actually is totally in character with the game. But it also could be like it could be an entirely new plot thread. Like, it's all possible. One interesting thing is that apparently Suda51 wants Travis's life to sort of match, or his games to sort of match, like the Rocky movies. There is more than 3 Rocky movies. So, Rocky 4 apparently goes to the north. Balboa, I think that's the one, right? So, there's the game has Sylvia literally tells Samus, your enemy's north, go. Like, I said Samus. Sylvia tells Travis.
Samus.
Yeah. So, I'm actually planning on maybe making a video about what I think for No More Heroes 4, like, if it can happen. But I think it can happen, but again, sales do matter, right? Like, I think it's one of those things where No More Heroes 4 will happen eventually, but will it happen 2 to 3 years from now, or will it happen 10 to 15 years from now? And a lot of that comes down to, how well this game performs. Because if it ends up being like the best selling No More Heroes by a sizable margin, then they're like, hey, maybe we can get a bigger team behind this. Maybe we could push this out a little quicker, and capitalize on that momentum. Like, if there's money to be made, they're gonna feel far more compelled to put something out there. And then there's also potentially spin-offs too. Like, he's made mention of maybe doing spin-offs as well, and there's already been some. So,
yeah, I believe the last thing I heard was he wanted to do a remaster of Flower, Sun, and Rain, which is it was a game that was released on the PS2 only in Japan. I think it came here on a DS, at some point. I don't remember when exactly. He was thinking about doing a remaster for that game because it is tied to the Silver Case series, and we got the Silver Case and we got the 25th Ward, and Flower, Sun, and Rain is kind of like in between those two. So that might happen, unless No More. I want to say No More Heroes 4 is not going to be seen for a while, because the only reason No More Heroes 2 came out not that long after the first game was because it was done by a different like a different head, I don't know what you call it, a supervisor or whatever it would be, head developer. Suda, that's the only one that Suda wasn't the main director for. While he was the main director for TSA and No More Heroes 3. So unless they do something like that again, he's probably gonna just move on to that Flower, Sun, and Rain remaster he's been thinking about, and maybe come back to No More Heroes a bit after that. I'm not sure, honestly, but Suda kind of just does what he wants for the most part. He's gonna he just does whatever he feels like it, honestly. And I could see him returning to the game after maybe a project or 2.
Maybe.
That's how I think about it.
I mean, it's worth noting that No More Heroes 2 only came out 3 years after No More Heroes 1, so
Yeah, and again, the development team is tiny too. Because I remember we've had multiple conversations talking about how Game Freak is not that big, as they only have like what was it, like 100 or something like that, like people.
I think it's 100 plus at this point, but like 150.
Yeah,
but it's been growing year by year. But still, like relative to like, how big the Pokemon brand is.
And mind you, Grasshopper is significantly smaller than that. They only have 20 developers.
They're considered an indie. Well, like No More Heroes is like considered like one of the first like
basically an indie. Yeah, it's basically like an indie game.
Yeah.
I think it's just because I don't know, maybe Suda does have those connections that we talked about, that he's able to basically have an indie studio, but find publishers more easily to get these games out on shelves. But for the most part, like I could see him coming back to. I don't think No More Heroes is going to end with 3. I see him coming back after a while. Whether or not he gives the IP to someone else to take care of, if that happens, then yeah, we'll probably see a game sooner than we think. But if Suda wants to remain in control of his IP, and the game sells well enough, I think
part of the problem is that both Marvelous and Grasshopper have shared stake in No More Heroes.
Yeah.
So they're kind of like tied to that. I think it would have to be a situation where like Nintendo would have to step in, like, hey, look, let's jointly publish and develop this together, where they offer some assistance, help them hire more, give them more funding, and that kind of allows them to expand a bit, and maybe that can kind of, maybe expedite that development process, and there's something there. But that's only if Nintendo wants to step in, and then obviously there's relationships and different things with that, so I don't know.
Yeah. And if I remember correctly, I think Grasshopper doesn't own that much of the IP. Like it's like I want to say like a 20 to 30% cut or something like
so that. Marvelous has most of it.
Yeah, like Marvelous has the most of it, because I remember Suda mentioning that it wasn't up to him whether or not a new No More Heroes game actually came out. It was up to their publisher.
Right. So that's also part of the issue. So it's not just there needs to be desire from multiple fronts. So it's more hoops. But again, if the game sells really well, then that changes things a little bit, right? But let's let me check on the chat real quick, and then let's move on to the other topics here. Let's see. Ronnie Fazio, I have No More Heroes 3, but I haven't played it yet. Just curious because you brought up the anime influence. Are we talking Studio Trigger kind of anime? I don't know why they just came to my mind. I'm not sure if I'm familiar with Studio Trigger. I might know their work, but
Trigger did the animators of Kill la Kill, Gurren Lagann.
I see why you might think that, but it's more rooted in like older style animes, I think. But the influence, it's not just from older anime, it's just kind of across the board to an extent, but it's more rooted in older style animes. That's all I'll say on that. Nishant Kelker was asking you, Shifty, if Okumura is on Spotify.
They might be, but I'm not entirely sure. I know they have a website you can go to. I know they have a YouTube channel where they post their music on as well. I don't remember off the top of my head if they're on Spotify. Actually, I'm about to go check that while you find the next question.
Yeah. The Best Cowboy added a few different people, including me. So you watch a movie and he's talking. Okay, that's something between you guys. All right, that's fine. Let's see here. D Fox, I've been playing No More Heroes 3 and I'm loving it. No More Heroes 1 is still my favorite. Yeah, I'm gonna get back to No More Heroes 1 and try and finish that. Because I'm more intrigued now than I was before because of how much I enjoyed 3. It's just each boss fight and the story and the character personality behind that is so intriguing. I want to see more about that and the history there.
Okay, so just bringing it up now, Akumura is on Spotify. It doesn't look like you'll find the No More Heroes song here because I'm pretty sure that would be tied to like Marvelous and all of them. But if you want to like listen to their original tracks, like they are on Spotify. So.
Zalado, if the game had more budget, then it would not be so creative and it would not take much risk, and it would be just another game of shot, bang, bang of the bunch, just like any other AAA game. I don't know if I would necessarily agree with that.
So,
there's actually a good example of this actually happening already. If I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the Suda 51 game, Shadows of the Damned.
No.
Basically, it was a Suda 51 game where originally he had a very different idea for the game, and their publisher ended up being EA.
Oh.
And the game took a very, very different approach than what Suda 51 wanted. So much so that when they released the game, Suda 51 went out and wrote a manga with the original story.
Nice.
Like, just away from the game. So that could be the case, honestly. It really just depends on who funds them, honestly, because EA was very adamant about certain details being changed.
Well, and that's why I said not necessarily, right? Like, it does depend. Yeah. Like, if you do get a lot of funding from a publisher, to your point, like, they then could put more creative license into that. And maybe that's one of the reasons why Suda doesn't go bigger, because he likes to have his own creative input there. Right. But at the same time, like, I mean, I've seen AAA games take risks. Like, there are AAA games that do weird stuff, right? Like, Death Stranding's pretty weird, for example. Hideo Kojima is kind of, I'm not saying he's exactly like Suda 51, but he's another guy who has a very weird creative mind, and his projects get a lot of funding. So, he's
probably the most well-known wacky developer. Like, when I think of wacky developers, yeah.
Shigeru Miyamoto is kind of off his rocker, I think, too.
When I think of like those niche Japanese wacky developers, I think of Suda 51, Suiri, and Yoko Taro.
Okay,
those are the ones I think of typically. And Hideo Kojima is definitely up there, considering that he's like the biggest budgeted version of that.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, if a company stepped in to fund No More Heroes, I don't think that would inherently mean that it loses creativity. I think if a company stepped in, it's because they want more of that. That would be the situation. But I also understand the point that for some companies that they're more involved, then they would want more of their own direction for that. I mean, that's why Nintendo hasn't specifically published No More Heroes, because it's so dark and bloody and cursy. That's not the typical Nintendo way. But I think No More Heroes should be an exception.
I mean, have it up there with Bayonetta, honestly. Like, if you're gonna have these sort of M-rated hack and slash type games, like, you can have Travis and Bayonetta right next to each other, honestly.
Travis just has a lot of themes.
Vulgarity.
It's a lot of vulgarity. Yeah. I think that's kind of the issue there. And, I mean, really weird sexual references. Now, Bayonetta is just like pseudo naked, so there's that. But I don't think it's an issue. But I'm not Nintendo. Nintendo can be very particular about a lot of things. John Grantham, is your name Andres or Andre? There's an S, so it's Andre. I mean, you can say it's not Andre. It's Andres or Andres or Andres. Those are all fine. If you say Andre, I'm not going to be upset. If you say Andreas, I will flip a table. I hate it when people say that, because you're adding a letter. Taking away a letter is just like, nickname kind of territory. We're like shortening it. But if you give me an extra letter, I am livid. I am not the city San Andreas. Okay, I'm not related to GTA. My name is Andres or Andres or something like that. Not Andreas. Andre's okay. I don't mind that. That's fine. But let's talk about some direct rumor stuff now. So we've talked about it ad nauseum already. There is a long history of Nintendo Directs, general big Nintendo Directs in September. The only time it hasn't happened in the last half decade is last year, and that's only because it was COVID. What we got instead, we got announcements for Monster Hunter Rise and a Nintendo Direct Mini Partner Showcase. We got an announcement for a Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, its own separate announcement, as well as Pikmin 3 Deluxe, I believe. And there was a Super Mario 35th Anniversary Direct, which was a 30-plus minute Direct, including a whole bunch of Mario announcements, including the most anticipated rumored game of the year, which was Super Mario 3D All-Stars. It was a big... September was like the biggest time in terms of announcements for the entire year last year. I'm not saying it's going to be the biggest time this year, but the point is that in the one year there wasn't a general Direct, there was more news for Nintendo than any other month in September. Point being that every September, the last half decade, we have gotten major Nintendo news. Like, not just about one game, but a series of games. Usually a Nintendo Direct, in the case of COVID 2020 year, a series of other announcements, direct style things. So the pattern strongly suggests that, again, that'll happen. And it's not even just that. There's a need for more information. Nintendo has multiple games coming out. WarioWare is coming out September 10th. Metroid Dread is coming out on the 8th. Mario Party is coming out October 29th. Show Me Tensei 5, which is a big third-party game, but because it's a big third-party game, not that many Nintendo fans know about it. It needs to be featured in a Direct as well, so to get a bigger push. And then there's also Advance Wars coming out in December. So all these things, they also announced Brain Age for December as well. So all of that, needs a push. Brain Age might be a separate thing because it's kind of more of like a casual thing, but still, a lot of that needs to be pushed in a Direct. It makes sense. So it's kind of all coming together. Plus, there's a need for a Smash character announcement. Timing wise, it kind of lines up with, we usually wait about 3 or so months between Smash characters during Fire Splash Volume 2, or June to September. Like, we're there. So, and it's due up about by the end of the year. So this is probably the month when it's happening. But there are now rumors, basically just riding on the pigtails of obvious correlation and pattern, suggesting there will be a Direct this month. I don't necessarily care for the rumors because, as I just told you, the history tells you, you don't need the rumors to expect this. But there are rumors now coming, like Zippo and Samus Hunter and other people like that who have leaked and rumored things in the past. They're all suggesting it. Other people who supposedly have sources have been alluding to it as well, but they could just be alluding to it like me just because, there's a history of it happening. It's not crazy to expect it to happen. There's very likely going to be a Direct. I don't necessarily care about the rumors just because it's the history tells you don't need the rumors to kind of expect this. But in your guys' opinions, do you buy into this thinking? Do you still think a Direct is happening? Brandon and Shifty have been able to talk about this recently, but what do you guys think?
I think there's one that should be soon. I was going to think that there'd be one this upcoming Thursday, but there's going to be a PlayStation event then. So I'm like,
Wednesday.
Now I don't know.
Wednesday.
Maybe so.
I mean, they could do it on the same day. I feel like Nintendo might even just do it the day right before, just to kind of, or the day after.
Yeah, they could.
I personally kind of expect it this week. Month. Yeah, I mean, either way this month, but they would see the reason why I think it's happening this upcoming week is mainly because of WarioWare. It's coming out on the 10th, so I feel like they want to give that game a spotlight. Now, could they get away with just hyping up WarioWare all throughout the week? Yeah, they haven't really been doing that though, have they? Not yet. I mean, the week's just started, but leading up to this week, there hasn't been that much WarioWare. There was a demo that came out recently, so there's that. I'm going to Nintendo's Twitter just to see. It is their banner. WarioWare Get It Together is their banner, so there's that to consider. They did tweet about it 10 hours ago. All right, I mean, so they are talking about it. Yeah, okay, I take it back. They are talking about it. It is something that they are doing. They even have a day countdown every day, so they are marketing it on their social media. But it, again, I didn't even realize that until I looked, right? It's one of those things, maybe it does need a direct sort of spotlight to really be given the push that Nintendo may want for it. So that's why I think that a Direct is happening specifically this week, just because that game needs a push. But they could just put out another overview trailer or something like that, and they could get away with not doing that. So to your point, Brandon, maybe it does come later, and maybe Nintendo doesn't want to avoid the getting in the way of the Sony stuff. But I'm personally, and again, I could totally be wrong, but I am personally going into this week with the expectation that it is a Direct, and I'm prepared to be wrong. I have that, so just so we're clear, but because I've made it my job to make videos about Nintendo, I am preparing to cover that direct. Like, I am ready to do that. So that's kind of like my perspective. Like, I am mentally preparing myself, thinking ahead of time, like, okay, there may be a direct this week. I should think about what my work schedule is, and because I personally, there's a really good chance it could happen this week. But of course, that doesn't mean it will happen. It could be later this month. Heck, it may not even happen in September. Nintendo could throw us for a loop, so we have to take it with a grain of salt. But in my opinion, all signs are pointing towards a direct this month. Like, it's gonna happen. That's what I think.
Yeah, I mean, I have no reason to doubt that there would be a direct this month, considering it seems to be a thing every year. Whether or not it's this week, I don't know. I've never been good at like narrowing it down to the week, but yeah, I think it's pretty much a guarantee that it's going to be this month. I don't see it not happening.
For every major general direct this week, I've been like spot on. So like, I scheduled one day off, like 2 months in advance for the specific day for Nintendo's E3 Direct. Months in advance, like I scheduled a day off work for that day because I was like, this is probably the day it's going to happen. And that was right. And then going back to February, people weren't even sure if the general directs were returning out, and there were most people, like even like leakers, are like, oh, we don't know when there'll be a direct. I was like, no, it's going to happen like this week because they need to talk about stuff in February, and that's when it happened. So I feel pretty good about my direct predictions this year. Last year was a mess, but so we'll see. I mean, obviously I could be wrong. 2 for 3 still solid, but you know.
I mean, do you have a specific day in mind? Was that
the 8th or the 9th?
The 8th or the 9th?
Based off the Sony thing, maybe the 8th. Also, if it's the 8th, that's closer to the maintenance date of Monolith Soft's website, which a lot of people have been pointing to, that could be suggesting that they might be preparing for like some sort of Monolith Soft announcement. I don't think maintenance inherently means 100% that there's a Monolith Soft announcement, but it could be. So, you know, I'm leaning towards the 8th right now because of those two things, the maintenance and also the Sony show. The 8th, I'm assuming, is Wednesday, unless my numbers are off.
I think it is.
Yeah.
No, yeah, it's Wednesday. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards the 8th, but I had one of those days.
I'm kind of hoping it is the 8th. Because I think I would have more. I think I would actually be able to watch it if it happened on the 8th. If it happened on a Thursday, I wouldn't be able to. Yeah. I would have to catch it afterward.
The other thing is that like Nintendo could conceivably be like, all right, we're gonna they'll see the Sony show like, oh, the Sony show, we should think about that. Should we come before, or should we maybe move some things around and do it even later into the month and do it afterwards? Like, I could see, because the thing about Nintendo, from what I've heard, they changed their mind quick. Like, it could be the case that last week they had the direct recorded, ready to go, and they're like, we're doing it on this date. And then a day later they hear about the Sony thing, like, oh, you know what? Nope, we're pushing it 2 weeks. Like, that can happen. So that's kind of like sometimes like why you'll see certain leakers that have this history of being legit, and people are like, oh, they're legit, but then all of a sudden they look like an idiot. It's because sometimes Nintendo just changes their plan last minute for a multitude of reasons. So, you know, I don't know. But like, just from my person, like from a logic perspective, I think the 8th kind of like really feels right because of WarioWare, because of the Sony presentation, because of the Monolith Soft maintenance. Like, that's like, if there's a time that's happening that does kind of, it satisfies multiple logical sort of conclusions, right? But again, just because we feel like it's logical, just because like we feel like it makes sense, it doesn't mean that's what's going to happen. But that is what I'm sort of rolling with right now.
Right. Well, I mean, I'll say this much: if there's a Monolith announcement this week, it'll make my week. It'll make my week.
Xenoblade 3 is happening, baby.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Like, there's few companies that have that kind of power over me where like they can announce a game and I'm just immediately like, oh, I don't know what it's about, but yeah, like and just like yelling.
Yeah, whether it's a new IP or Xenoblade 3, like I am so ready for Monolith Soft's next project. Like,
oh yeah,
I think they're, you know, if you look at the sales of their own developed games, they're nothing compared to Super Mario or Zelda. But as a hardcore Nintendo fan or just a hardcore gamer, like from a quality perspective, from a scope perspective, the Monolith Soft games I think are like right there. Like in terms of my hype levels, like it's about, I'm almost as hyped for a new Monolith Soft game as I would be for a new Super Mario or a Zelda game or a Metroid game. Like it's like right there for me. So this will be huge. And initially the rumors, apparently, I'm sure you guys heard the rumors about the Xenoblade 3. Like even Imran Khan came out and said that initially there was a plan for it to come out this holiday. Like that could have been like the big holiday game, you know, like big open worlds, online RPG stuff, like with epic music and battles. Like that would have satisfied the big holiday game sort of kind of game. But COVID. Right. So, you know, and not to say that I'm disappointed by the lineup, by the way. I think Nintendo did a great job of sort of giving us a nice steady flow of quality games to lead throughout the year. None of them are like AAA major projects, but they're all quality stuff. And that's also not me sliding Metroid Dread, by the way. Metroid Dread, I think, is going to be the best-selling Metroid game of all time until Prime 4. And like I'm super excited for it. But the point is Metroid Dread is a 2.5D game. It's not an open world game that required millions upon millions upon millions of dollars to make, right? That it's taken 5 or 6 years to develop, like not like Breath of the Wild. Like there is a difference there.
Yeah.
But a Xenoblade game can give you a similar vibe to a Zelda in terms of like scope, you know? So I'm, even though it's not coming out this year, like there's no way. Definitely excited to see it. Yeah, and if it's getting announced in a direct next week or this month, that strongly suggests it's coming out next year, and that's fine.
That's gonna be a packed year too.
Yeah,
when you really look at it, like if we're getting Xenoblade 3, Breath of the Wild 2, Splatoon 3, like that's just that's like a sequel to 2017 at that point.
Yeah,
it's like 2017 too. Like you might as well just call it that at that point.
And I have confidence that Splatoon 3 and Xenoblade 3 will probably be overall considered better games than their predecessors. I love Splatoon 2 and Xenoblade 2. They're some of my favorite games on Switch, but you know what I mean? Like I feel like they're going to be better. Like a Xenoblade 3, I think is going to... Do you mean from like you personally, or like a general consensus? From a general consensus, critical acclaim sort of perspective. Okay. From a me perspective, they're gonna. I mean, I love Splatoon 2 and Xenoblade 2. I'm pretty sure I love Splatoon 3 and Xenoblade 3. Like they're gonna be great.
Yeah.
I'm sure that.
I think Xenoblade 3 will be a lot more technically polished than the second one, probably. Yeah. Have a lot more time with the Switch.
Yeah. That was an issue with Xenoblade 2 because they kind of rushed it out. It was a small development team. It was developed in different parts around the world. Xenoblade 3, from what we've heard of the rumors, it's going to be a more cohesive development effort. There's going to be a bigger team behind it. There's more going to be a little bit more concise there. So the thinking is that when it comes out, it's going to be more polished. It's going to be more ambitious, actually, a little bit more perhaps open and doing more from a technical perspective. So, you know, it's going to be more likely a more ambitious, polished game. And that will lead to probably better reviews. And maybe a better overall, like, you know, impression of the game across the board for people. Splatoon 3 is probably just going to... Nintendo has improved their online servers. They changed them a little bit. And Monster Hunter Rise ran like a dream. So, like, you know, maybe Splatoon 3 will also kind of fix some of those issues that a lot of people complain about for Splatoon 2. So it may end up being like a bigger, better sort of online experience. So I guess, like, even though I'm talking about from a critical acclaim perspective, the reason why is because there is reason to believe that both Splatoon 3 and Xenoblade 3 are going to be better experiences than their predecessors. For Xenoblade 3, it's because it's going to be more polished. in terms of like performance, and it's going to be a little bit more ambitious from a maybe open graphical perspective. And then for Splatoon 3, there's reason to believe that the online portion will be more consistent, which is what the entire game is built around, the online experience. So yeah, I think those two games are going to be huge, slightly huger than their iterations in 2017. And then Breath of the Wild 2, that's, you could also argue, could be a better version of Breath of the Wild 1. Now, there is the issue with sequelitis, I think, with that one, a little bit, that it has to kind of like overcome. Like, I don't know if it's going to sell better, right? But like, if they're building off Breath of the Wild 1, like, they have the capability to make Breath of the Wild 2 significantly better. Like, what were the issues with Breath of the Wild 1? The world was great. It just maybe needed more towns, maybe more like unique side quests, maybe a little bit more enemy variety, right? And like, that could be done when you're building off the same engine for more time in the same world. Like, they can afford to make the world more dense, with more variety, with more things to do, and they can push that physics engine as well, so they can kind of build upon what they already did. Like, Breath of the Wild is Nintendo's first sort of like big effort at a open Zelda game in the modern era. So like, with their second go around, they should have a lot of, there is conceivably a lot of room for improvement there, right? So like, from an objective perspective, Breath of the Wild 2 may be a better experience. Now, if it's not a new experience for you, it may not feel like a better thing, you know, because it's like that whole sequelitis thing, right? But like, if you didn't play Breath of the Wild 1 and you jump into Breath of the Wild 2, you might think that it's, you know, like the best game ever. So yeah, you know, there is also that potential for Breath of the Wild 2 to conceivably be better than Breath of the Wild 1. So yeah, but to my point is that it may not be just because of that, but maybe we have a situation where Breath of the Wild 2 outdoes Breath of the Wild 1 from a quality perspective, Xenoblade 3 the same, and Splatoon 3 the same. Like, that's awesome, right? When you think about how great 2017 was. But I guess the argument I'm making here is that if these three games end up outdoing their predecessors, that'll be awesome, but I also don't expect us to see Super Mario Odyssey 2 next year. Like, I don't. I mean,
that'd be awesome if that happened, but yeah, I don't see it happening either.
Or Mario Kart 9 for that matter.
Right.
I think
or ARMS 2.
Or ARMS 2, one or the other, because it would probably be the same developer. Watch, they did both.
Yeah. I mean, I agree when it comes to Splatoon because of the online infrastructure. Well, not this infrastructure, but whatever it is that they improved.
Yeah.
And Xenoblade. I feel like with Zelda, like you mentioned, like sequelitis is definitely going to be a big thing. It might technically be a better game than the first one, but I feel like what made so many people fall in love with the first one was the wow factor of that world, right? So yeah, it needs to match that wow factor for someone to feel that again, right? And I think that's really hard to do, personally. Yeah. So I can honestly, I don't see it. I see it selling really well. I don't see it beating Breath of the Wild 1. And I have a hard time seeing if it'll critically also beat Breath of the Wild 1. But on a technical level, like mechanically and maybe storyline wise and, you know, certain aspects of the game, it might be an improvement over the first game. That's still very much possible. But it's going to be very difficult for them to, like, do that wow factor again and get the same people who play the first one to play this one and also say, like, hey, look, this is a totally different game. This is, like, you know, nothing that you knew from the first game. That's tough. That's a hard game to do, especially when it's on the same platform. Yeah. I feel like it's also like that when, you know, Nintendo typically has like maybe like one Smash game per like generation, and then they wait for the next generation, then they come out with the next one. Like when that happens, people tend to buy it because it's the new one and I want it for my new system, right? Yeah. But since it's launching on the Switch as well, they need to do something that I feel like would be the huge wow factor. I guess that could be the islands, but I'm not sure if that's going to be enough. Like, it's a great addition, the islands, but I don't think that, and it may be the case that we don't know how vast that Sky realm is. It could be.
I don't think we know anything yet.
True, yeah.
It's an incredible point, Brandon.
We've seen two very, very small trailers. We've seen less than 5 minutes of this game. We don't know anything about this game, essentially.
It might even be less than 4 minutes.
Yeah.
And that hasn't stopped all the awesome Zelda YouTubers out there like analyzing every little frame of both trailers. Which, by the way, I've watched almost all of those kind of videos. But
I think I have a feeling that it's kind of like the first time we saw Pokemon Sword and Shield, where they just didn't show things, or things were just disabled, like just straight up not in that version of the game. I feel like they're doing that for Breath of the Wild too, where there's just straight up not that's a special version of the game that has a lot of things stripped out so that you can't see it, even if you did look and tried to find out what was going on.
Yeah, because when you think about it, right, like, so, like, they have to be doing something special with this because they started development in 2017. They already had the world in place. They already had the engine in place. So they're really just building off it. Like, conceivably, they could have come out with another game in 2 years, which would be probably a little bit of a stretch, but they could have, right? 3 years was more than healthy enough of a difference. So they could have come out with a game in 2020. They didn't. They could have come out with a game in 2021. They're not, right? And this game doesn't look like an early 2022 title. I don't think so, at least. I feel like it's like a holiday 2022 title. So we're talking about like a 5-year development cycle off of an engine that was already established. So like if you consider Breath of the Wild, the Breath of the Wild development cycle, it's almost like this game's been developed for like 10 years. Like, so if you think of it like that, right? Like the Breath of the Wild being like the first half of the development, like it's just the development cycle has actually been longer than Breath of the Wild 1. Is actually the point I really want to make here. So like what are they doing with this to, like, if the game comes out and it feels like Breath of the Wild 1, then they failed, because they've been spending more time on the sequel, which rarely happens, than the initial one. Now, obviously, COVID has impacted things. Like, that has pushed things, right? So that is something to consider there. But even if you slice out a year, that's still a ridiculous amount of time to put into a game that's a direct sequel using the same engine and world. Like, it's not even like it's just using the same engine. It's using the same world. So, like, they show shots into, like, it's still in the same Hyrule. So you have to think that, you know, they have a lot. They already have a lot there to just kind of build off of. So you would hope that all that extra time goes into doing some really crazy stuff, right? To your point, Brandon, maybe they're being very careful about showing us that stuff, which I'm inclined to agree. But will that stuff be enough to make it feel not just fresh, but like as big of a new, refreshing experience that's kind of gives it that same wow factor, to your point, Shifty, that it's like the next Breath of the Wild? And I don't just mean literally a sequel, but like the next sort of like game changer, the next game that's like people are like, okay, well now we have to make, because I'm kind of annoyed by it now. Like, there's so many games that are trying to mimic Breath of the Wild, like stylistically or like gameplay wise, or like, you know, they try to, oh, this is the next Breath of the Wild. They're like, so many games are trying to like match some element of that game because of the big hype behind it. Like, can Breath of the Wild 2 do that again, where games are trying to copy it, where it raises the bar to that level? And I would say history suggests maybe no. Because, I mean, in general, sequels are hard. It's hard for sequels to do. It has happened where sequels do surpass the original, but it's unlikely.
I don't think it needs to be honest.
Yeah, it doesn't need to, because it'll still be like a fantastic game.
Yeah.
I'm sure we're thinking,
but
like,
I want it to.
from a perspective of it, like, topping Breath of the Wild, right? Like, whether or not it'll sell better, be critically, like, you know, better than Breath of the Wild 1. Like, for us, we're gonna love it. I'm pretty sure we're all like,
yeah, I'm not. There's no way I'm gonna be disappointed about it.
Yeah,
no,
right,
no way.
But like, we're talking like critically, commercially, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
like whether or not it'll surpass the original, and I have a hard time seeing that personally. Because on, like, you typically don't see sequels sell better than the originals. It has happened in other franchises, but I just don't see it happening. Yeah. It's rare, I guess.
Like, Zelda 2 did not outperform the original Legend of Zelda. Majora's Mask didn't outperform Ocarina of Time. Twilight Princess did. I think Twilight Princess did outdo Wind Waker, but that also launched on the Nintendo Wii, so that kind of, it's a little bit of a cheat there. Skyward Sword definitely outperformed compared to Twilight Princess. So, again, it's kind of a weird sort of like thing there. A Link to the Past didn't have like a direct sequel within the same generation. Before someone says, "Oh, well, there's a link between worlds," I know, and there's also there's a Link's Awakening. I think that uses which Link? Oh, Link's Awakening, I think is that's based off the original Zelda Link, I think.
Spirit Tracks sold worse than Phantom Hourglass.
Yeah. Even though Spirit Tracks is considered a better game, right?
It's a better game.
Yeah. But it's the second
is.
one on the system,
Like,
so it's just harder to do.
It's just expected, right? Like when you have like a sequel on the same system, like some people, I don't know, I'm not this kind of person, but there's probably some people who just
damn casuals.
I was just gonna say, like, some people probably just have their fill and they're done, right? Like they get that one Zelda game, or that one Mario, whatever it is, and they're like, okay, I've had fun, that was cool.
And part of it is that, like, because Breath of the Wild launched with the Switch, right? It's kind of like, oh, this is the Zelda game for the Switch, like you're saying, like people already gone. Most people have already gone the Switch. You've already gone that game. A lot of those initial sales are already they're kind of gone to an extent. So in order for Breath of the Wild 2 to even come close, it needs to do some crazy shit. Like, it needs to, like, change the wheel.
They gotta have some kind of trailer that just goes trending like crazy on social media, and this is like the big wow factor, and everyone's gonna go, oh, I gotta play this, or for whatever reason. For Breath of the Wild, it was the fact that it was on the Switch, it was a massive world, it was something that Zelda had never really, tackled before. So there was a lot of wow factor to Breath of the Wild, and like the way people would talk about the game and the physics and everything, it was just, the whole package was the wow factor, right? And now that we have a game that's releasing where a lot of that package is reused, it's difficult to make people understand that this is, what the new wow factor is, because people buying this game for like $60, like a full price thing, and they know it's the same world and it's reused and whatnot. You're gonna have to do something to convince them to buy it, buy this game. Like, it's not the same game. We know that. Like, fans know this, right? But there's gonna be people who are not. They bought the first one. They're not, massive Zelda fans who go on YouTube and talk about it, right? But
yeah, but they're also smartly calling it right now the sequel to Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. Like, the actual name is not going to be Breath of the Wild 2, and it having its own name, that affords them the ability to give the game its own identity. And with its own identity, it can have its own life. It can have its own pattern and direction. So, like, conceivably, it can pave its own path, and it can do something. It can maybe sell a bit better. It's unlikely, but again, they have to do something crazy, and I think it may have to be multiple crazy things. Like, one thing I think they absolutely need to do, they need to have voice acting. There's already voice acting in the game, but the story needs to be done better. And
Link should talk.
Exactly. Link should talk. Ganondorf should talk. That'll make a difference. It's not gonna be not alone, not just that, but that's gonna be one of the things that needs to be done in order for them to, because the first actual Zelda game that has Link talking, that's huge stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think that would be a benefit. I just don't know if like those specific things would be the big, like, even together would be the big wow factor, because I feel like those are things that are big to people who have played Zelda. Like, oh, we've never heard Link before, talk before, because as fans we've played through many of these games and we know he's not a character who talks, right? Like, I have a friend who played Breath of the Wild, his first Zelda game ever. He had no idea that was a thing, that Link never talked, So having Link talk now would be big for us, but I don't think it'd be like a huge deal. Like, other people who never played a Zelda game would just think that's normal. That's expected, like, just to have the main character talk, But I do agree that there has to be like a bunch of things that happens to like convince more casual people to pick up the game again, or maybe buy it for the first time if they didn't play the first game. And honestly, I don't know. Like, it's hard to get.
I think if you have like a really well voiced, if they do the story really well this time, right, and you have Ganondorf, like, if they really push this story, this narrative, and it's like kind of like touted as like the quintessential fantasy medieval like story game of like that, I think that helps a lot, right? But then you look at the Skyrim, like the Skyrim also do crazy stuff. We sim them sort of play around with time, like they have to do some crazy stuff with the time mechanics. There probably should be an underworld for Zelda or something. Like maybe making Zelda playable. Like they gotta do some stuff that hasn't been done. That's gonna be like, oh, we gotta play this one. Like there's gotta be some seriously new things that people are like, oh, Link's talking now. Zelda's playable. The dragon just explodes everything in space. Like there's gotta be crazy stuff.
It's gotta be stuff that would be impressive to the layman, like someone who doesn't play Zelda, who has no history of Zelda, and they see that trailer and they go, wow, that game looks amazing, I gotta pick that up. You know? Yeah, we're gonna pick that up because we're fans of Zelda, we're fans of Nintendo, we know we're gonna pick this up. Yeah, but if our hope or the dream, I guess, is for Breath of the Wild 2 is to surpass Breath of the Wild 1, they need to convince like a whole lot of casuals, a whole lot of people who don't play Zelda.
You know, one thing that that's kind of like a disappointment because it looks like Switch Pro isn't real, right, is Breath of the Wild 2 is not going to be 4K. But, like...
Yeah.
What if... That would be a thing. Like, what if there is still, like, a Switch revision that comes out holiday next year that's 4K capable, and then they tout this as the first 4K Zelda? Like, that's another thing. I think that's help.
Very unlikely scenario that I would not recommend hoping for.
I'm not saying I disagree. I think you're probably right. But it's just, it's just another one of those things that would maybe help, right? And I guess the other thing is, like, I think the ultimate point we're making here is that it probably is not going to happen. Like, Nintendo's probably not going to get Breath of the Wild 2 outside Breath of the Wild 1. Like, it's just not. It's probably not going to happen. Unless they add online play. Like, it becomes like a big online game, which I do not want. But, like, that's like, you know what I mean? Like, that's a whole other direction. And
I think it would be insane if you could play online with, like, one of the friends and just run around the map and do crazy shit.
Yeah. Like, what if?
Or even just, like, up to 4 people. I think that you could do some
there
really
are definitely
crazy
some
things.
interesting. Yeah, there are some crazy. You're right. Like they could do some. They could be like 3D open world 4 swords, like that would be interesting.
Honestly, I feel like now's a good time for a multiplayer Zelda. Honestly, like they've been kind of hit and miss, but when you have it on a system where the online's actually like somewhat good or like feasible
compared to the past, at least. Yeah.
Yeah, like. It's a good. I think they just need a good idea that would make people actually want to. Because I feel like I don't know, but this is like a opinion where it totally just anecdotal. Like it could be different for everyone else.
Yeah.
But for me, like my biggest problem with like the multiplayer Zelda games is just convincing my friends to also buy it. That's it. It's just not a lot of like personal friends of mine are either Zelda fans or they are Zelda fans, but they're not interested in this particular Zelda.
Right.
So I think the problem with multiplayer Zelda is that they just need to like have a good idea that would make people want to buy just for that concept alone. That is also multiplayer.
There are a lot of big like single player adventure franchises that have had like a big online entry, right? Like which one is it? Final Fantasy 12 that's online, right? I might be wrong with the number. Is it 13?
I know it's the MMO.
14. Is it 14? Maybe it's 14. Yeah. But there's one that's like an MMO, right?
14.
It's an MMO. And then you have Skyrim online. You have Fallout. There's an online Fallout, right? Yeah, Fallout 76. Yeah. And then there's
people love that.
There's an online GTA game, right? Like the Grand Theft Auto has a big online presence as well. Like these are all like big franchises that have mostly history in single player.
I'm watching people play GTA 5 online, actually.
Yeah, so even though you could argue the idea of an online multiplayer Zelda may seem stupid, it also might not be stupid. Like, I don't care for that personally. Like, I don't need that personally. But if we're talking about the things that kind of, the different things that need to be done. Not all of them need to happen, by the way, but some of these things
that impress the casuals is what you're trying to say.
The things that impress the casuals, 4K, voice acting, online, like, those are the things.
See, that's the thing. Like, if you force these kind of things into a game, like the game will suffer, right? Like like if they're gonna do a multiplayer Zelda game, it would. I don't know. Like it can't be too focused on the multiplayer because then you have a Triforce Hero situation where the game just becomes really dull without the other players there. So they need some kind of gameplay idea that works just as well if you were by yourself, but have other people there too.
Yeah,
you know, that's the thing. Maybe they can have a sort of like Portal like esque puzzle box rooms where you solve dungeons together or something, and you would require other people in like different areas of the dungeon to like unlock certain doors or whatever.
Yeah,
I don't know, but it has to still feel like Zelda while still having some kind of mechanic that works well online just as well as offline.
Right. Yeah. And that's tough. We've talked a lot about Zelda, which is always great. But we all kind of agree there's probably gonna be a direct. We kind of just went a huge tangent talking about how Zelda, Xenoblade 3, and Splatoon 3 would just be awesome. I think they'll probably talk about some of those during the direct. Xenoblade 3 and Splatoon 3. I don't think they're talking about Zelda during the direct. That's my opinion.
No.
Do you think they'll talk about Zelda during the direct, Shifty? Or are you also kind of leaning towards a no?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I think maybe they could talk about it at the Game Awards. Like, since Smash is done, the two franchises that have had the biggest focus on Nintendo the Game Awards are either Zelda or Smash. Smash is done, so, well, they have Breath of the Wild 2 coming, so I think there's probably going to be a Breath of the Wild 2 teaser again at the Game Awards, just to build up more hype, so maybe they do sell pretty well. But yeah, I don't expect anything direct.
If there's anything Zelda related, it's going to be like something really small. Like, because I believe Cadence of Hyrule came out the same year as Link's Awakening. So
yeah, something like that.
If it's something like that, yeah, then maybe we'll see Zelda. But otherwise, it's not going to be like Breath of the Wild.
Or maybe like a Game Boy Zelda game.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And now
there's a lot of rumors right now that Game Boy Color, and possibly Game Boy Advance too are going to come to Switch Online during the direct.
We are doing it, guys. We are doing the perfect segue.
Yeah.
To the final topic. So, yeah, there are a lot of rumors for Game Boy and Game Boy Color. But I've been talking about Game Boy Advance. Now, I'm not saying that's what I heard or anything. That's just what I think makes sense to have some Game Boy Advance games. Specifically, Metroid Zero Mission, Metroid Fusion, out on the Switch Online eShop just in preparation for Metroid Dread. Like, that's the main reasoning behind it. That's it. Also, Game Boy Advance just has a lot of really good games that would hold up really well compared to Game Boy and Game Boy Color. But that's not being rumored, at least it wasn't initially. But more recently, we got an expansion, an update on the rumor from Eurogamer, I believe. And they said that Game Boy and Game Boy Color and potentially other platforms could be coming to Nintendo Online. Potentially other platforms to me is like, well, Game Boy Advance. Like that to me, that it just seems like the best thing to bring. If you're gonna do Game Boy, just give us like, have Game Boy be like an all-encompassing thing. Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, and just give us like a lot of the greats from all three. And I think that will work out really well because we can get games like Minish Cap, right? Or we can get Four Swords. We can get Metroid 2. We can get Metroid Zero Mission. We can get Metroid Fusion. We can get that all on the eShop, so you can have some games for the Zelda fan base for the anniversary, what have you, because they want to celebrate that. You'd also get Metroid on there because there's a lot of Metroid hype right now. A lot of people are buying the Metroid games on the Wii U eShop right now because people are hyped for Metroid Dread. And I think this will all work really well for marketing towards Metroid Dread, which Nintendo is absolutely pushing and launching alongside Switch OLED October 8th. So, you know, I buy into these rumors because we've been speculating on this happening for over a year. Before the rumors, this has been a thing that I've kind of thought would happen. Now, I want Game Boy Advance. This is specifically being rumored between Game Boy and Game Boy Color, but the Eurogamer one gives you some hope because they said potentially other platforms. So, yeah, I think this is likely happening, and it makes sense for it to be announced in a September Direct, because usually September Directs, another reason why there should be a Direct is because this is also the time when maybe a lot of people renew their Nintendo Online membership, because that's when it initially launched, and they like to come out with something to kind of keep people subscribed to Nintendo Online. So they'll have some sort of presentation announcing that stuff. It doesn't have to be in a direct, but it lines up. So I definitely buy into these rumors.
Okay, well, I'm hoping that the rumors are the case. Because if we get, was it Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance, that's a lot more systems that we get at like one bulk.
Yeah,
right?
I'm hoping for Game Boy.
Just...
I'm like pushing the Game Boy Advance thing. Game Boy Color is just kind of what the rumors are mostly saying.
Right. I mean, do you think it's gonna be like all three, or just specifically Advance?
I think it'll be a mix.
Okay.
Yeah.
So because like, you know how to have
be
the
clear,
app,
like I'm not trying to leak Game Boy Advance. Like I just personally think it makes sense, and there's a part of me
I'm really
that thinks it could
hoping
happen,
that their
but-
goal is just that they want all the Metroid games on Switch,
Yeah.
so that you can play all the way from the beginning up till Dread, and then just play Dread. That'd be amazing. I really hope that's what they're doing.
I guess the thing is like, for Nintendo? What's the difference between them getting Game Boy versus Game Boy Advance on the Switch eShop or Nintendo Online? Like for them, like
Right.
in terms of like technical like hurdles, like what is the difference?
It's just a second emulator.
Yeah. It would. I don't think it's a situation of it being difficult or anything like that.
No.
But I guess, are you saying, well, Brandon's saying maybe another emulator, so having two emulators is more work, right? If you have a Game Boy Color emulator that still plays Game Boy.
More work.
A Game Boy Color emulator
yeah.
would in theory also emulate Game Boy because they were like sort of still the same generation.
Yeah.
I mean, it had to, just in general, to play the Game Boy games on it already.
But like they're also so simple games that I feel like you could just like brute force emulate them.
Yeah, there's no reason why they couldn't do it very, very easily, I'm sure. But question is, will they?
And the
or will
question
they
is,
dangle in front of our faces for the next year's update? Like
they could do that.
Have done before.
Yeah, but I mean, they could do that, but I feel like eventually we have to start thinking about like N64 and GameCube and Wii.
One would hope.
I don't know if they'll go that far, but
I wouldn't go that far. Of maybe.
don't get me wrong, I'd love it, but I don't know. I mean, Nintendo also makes some very weird decisions as to what games they put on those services.
Yeah. Well, so, I mean, GameCube and Wii are more like maybe like remaster territory, but like N64, they gotta get in. They should get N64. I mean, they were putting N64 on the Wii. Like we're talking about Switch.
I love how we're arguing about whether or not it's possible that one day they'll have systems that they've emulated in the past on other systems
that are
on
more
their
advanced.
newest system. It's like,
Jesus I mean, Christ, that's the thing, right? Like, I think we're all aware that Nintendo's like a really odd company when it comes to making decisions like this.
Yeah.
So that's why it's like we could be getting like Game Boy Advance and Game Boy and all that, right? But what if they make some really odd decisions and put games on it that no one has even heard of in like a long time, right? How long did it take for Donkey Kong Country to show up on the Super Nintendo like app? Right, like that took a while, despite that being like one of the best games on the platform, right?
And don't they? They're still missing some big games. Like, are they missing Earthbound still?
Yes.
And they're still missing.
Yes.
Mario RPG. Is Mario RPG on there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're missing those.
Yeah. So honestly, like I don't know how many they would add onto the service, but if it's Game Boy Advance, let's hope that they do add the Metroid games. It would make a lot of sense for them to do that, but Nintendo's weird.
Like it's like the biggest. I feel like it's the biggest reason to bring the games to the those systems to the platform.
Because
now, with this timing,
like it makes the most sense, but it's also hard to understand what they feel makes sense, right? So I want to say with confidence that like if they add it, they're gonna add the games we want, but I just don't want to. I don't want like them to add like 15 games and 10 of them are like ports of sports titles or something like that. Like something odd and weird. But I mean, regardless, I think it's still good because they have to add some games that people like. Like I think Mario's and Zelda's are like a shoo-in for anything.
Right.
I just want Minish Cap. Oh god, I want Minish Cap.
Which was on the Wii U eShop.
A lot of things were on
Yeah.
on those old virtual consoles.
I wouldn't mind if some things are like not on there and like we're like, why are they not on there? And then all of a sudden we see like a remake. Like if the Oracle games just aren't on there for some reason, and then all of a sudden in a couple of years we see Oracle of Ages and Seasons remakes.
You know,
like I'd be fine with that.
It just dawned on me that the reason why the Wii U has such a stellar virtual console is because that's all the Wii U had. Like Nintendo needed to do something to kind of like keep the whatever momentum they had. The Switch doesn't need that. There's games coming out left and right. Like the Switch Online is like not even really that big of a deal in terms of like getting like there's not a lack of games, right? So there's no drought. There's games coming out left and right on the eShop. The Nintendo Online thing, like to tell you the truth, I barely use it. Like it's not that I don't like NES and SNES games, but barely do I ever use it. There's so many games to play. There's not really a need, which is probably why we haven't seen more from Nintendo's online like virtual console efforts, because they don't need to fall back on it. They don't really need it in any way to sort of maintain momentum at all. The Wii U, Nintendo did everything they could without actually making good games. They made good games, but you get my point. Like they didn't, they did not put all the development efforts into Wii U in terms of big ambitious projects because it was a failing system. You know.
Yeah.
So it's a different situation. The Switch is so successful that Nintendo doesn't have to like do everything they can, every little thing they can to kind of satisfy fans.
But at the same time, subscription-based services and things are known to be some of the highest like revenue streams for a lot of companies.
Right. That's the
and
motivation.
There's just kind of easy money. I feel like their best thing, I don't know, maybe this was just because they wanted people to not be upset about them forcing you to pay online, but I would have liked it if they just had a completely separate service with a whole bunch of them, just like, even if it was more, like $30 or $40 a year, I would have preferred a more robust system.
Okay, I thought you meant
and then just charge $60. Just charge $60 a year like everybody else. And give me something good. I don't know.
Like
I feel like that would earn them a lot more money.
If they did the $60 a year thing. Yeah, sorry to cut you off. Finish your thought?
No, I was just finished. I'm just saying I think people would pay for it. I think they would earn a lot of money.
I mean, imagine if it was just like basically almost every single game that's ever been on virtual console is just like, okay, this is all available to you if you put down this, and you have like voice chat and standard online, like, and that's like the premium.
I'd pay $60 for it.
Probably. I'd probably pay $60 for it too. If it included N64 games, yeah.
I'd pay $60 just to have voice chat actually integrated into the Switch, please. It's like every app that has online.
And do a patch where you can like use Bluetooth headsets or something.
Just let me be able to create a party and voice chat with or without a game. Just in general, let me be able to voice chat with my friends on a Switch. That's probably the best way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, every year we talk about Nintendo doing awesome online enhancements, and then every year we're disappointed. So I think this is one of those times where we probably like we can go into it. Right? We could talk about awesome things they could do for Nintendo Online options, but we know what's gonna happen.
Yeah, we know.
We're gonna
get Game Boy. Not even Color.
No, we're gonna get
just like Game Boy. That's it.
We're not even gonna get Game Boy. We're gonna get like Turbo Graphics.
I mean, that'd be kind of funny from a certain perspective.
Since we have Labo VR, they're gonna use Labo VR to give us the Virtual Boy online, and that's what we're gonna get.
That sounds awful.
but the catch is it'll be in color.
Honestly, if they did have Virtual Boy Online, I'd try it. That'd be pretty high.
Yeah, I'd be interested. Yeah.
I mean, if I already pay for it, I will try it.
Yeah.
It's the same reason why I downloaded Pac-Man 99, Tetris 99, Mario 35. It's like,
yeah,
I might not like it, but I'll try it because it's free.
Good point.
Like that's the whole thing, and honestly, like considering how every year we're hoping for some kind of addition to the service, I'm kind of just expecting nothing. And even if we do get something, I'm expecting just Game Boy, like not even like
You want to know what would be like mind blowing? Right, this is a mind blowing thing. What if they went with? You guys are gonna hate this. You're gonna hate it. You guys are gonna hate it. But what if they went with a free to play structure for Splatoon 3, and they announced an open beta that you can download on Switch eShop coming out by the end of the year during its direct?
And so what am I paying for then? What's the monetization structure of this game?
Accessories. You buy accessories.
Is there a
gear?
battle pass? Do I have to buy things separately? What's the structure here?
Clothes. Pay for clothes.
But you need.
This is not very well thought out.
I can tell.
Because the thing is, like,
I know
clothes,
Splatoon gear is
but instead of free
stats.
updates, we have to pay like a couple bucks for.
I think they would change around the mechanics a little bit, where the clothes would be purely aesthetic, and the stats would be kind of elsewhere.
What if it's just like, don't they have? Wait, is that a thing? I don't. Or am I thinking of Monster Hunter, where you have like clothes that just don't do anything, but they just like up on top of like the actual gear? Or am I thinking of Monster Hunter?
Well, in Monster Hunter Rise, you can. There are some.
I know you
games
can
that
have layered armor.
Like you can. There are some you kind of you unlock more options as you progress, but like you can kind of like change around your clothes a little bit. Xenoblade Definitive Edition does it actually, where regardless of whatever, you can have armor that's for your stats, and then you get armor for how you look. Right.
Right. I just
always looked like one of those special ones that you get for like figures. Xenoblade 2 content.
It would have to be like those like costumes that don't affect anything. Maybe they just go on top of like your normal gear. Because if it's just giving you gear, then that's just winning.
I wouldn't
at that
mind.
point.
Save me $60.
But costumes, yeah, I mean costumes or something.
I don't usually use a lot of different gear and stuff, so if it was like just cosmetic now, I'd prefer that because I don't really care about the tiny little specific stats.
Okay. Well, the thing is like that, like there's still going to be a large community who's not going to like that, right?
The competitive community hates this. If Duma was on here, he'd be freaking out.
Foaming. He unfriended me.
Like, as long as it doesn't do that, it's fine. Honestly, like I'm not really that sensitive to like, I guess microtransaction on free to play unless it's like clearly predatory, like like pay to win or I'm not necessarily a huge fan of like gacha like loot boxes.
I hate pay to progress games.
Yeah, like it would have to be like cosmetics that do literally nothing other than make you look shiny.
I mean, Pokemon Unite kind of has those elements, and it still doesn't bother me that much. I've played it a lot, and I've enjoyed it. I've put in like 35, 40 hours, and I'm going to play it more.
Have you put money into it, though?
I have not.
See, that's the problem. If they're going to make a free-to-play game, they want you to put money into it.
I've never put money into any game.
But yeah, I don't. I'm gonna put money in Pokemon Unite once they come out with a Charizard costume. I'm buying it. I'm just waiting. No, I will spend money on Pokemon Unite. I will do it. But it's gonna be when there's something I really want. I'm not gonna spend $100. I'll spend like $5. But something else.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what they're hoping for is just you spend some money. There's gonna be whales out there who spend like hundreds and hundreds of dollars, right? But that's kind of what like any company who puts out a free to play game with microtransactions, that's what they're hoping for, right?
Yeah.
Like they're not gonna put it out and just leave it running, draining money from them, and just never, change it. Like I think Nintendo recently like shut down the Dr. Mario smartphone game, and that's probably because it wasn't really making all that much for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you, I don't necessarily actually want them to do this to Splatoon 3. I'm not saying it's likely either. It's just an idea. But what if, you know, going back to the idea, because, you know, Darcy actually says in the chat, like, Darcy says, I would hate established franchise to turn to freemium games. A new freemium game, sure, I don't care, but don't do this to existing properties. Like, I understand your point. Like, I would be kind of worried if they did it to Splatoon 3, as we kind of alluded to. Like, it would sort of mess with the core mechanics. But, what if there is, like, a new IP? What if instead of Xenoblade 3, we actually get an announcement of Monolith Soft's new IP, and it's, like, a big, like, online MMO that's free to play?
I would be very interested to know what the mechanics would be for that kind of game. Because that sounds very messy and difficult to actually get that, like, making sense, I guess.
Sure.
And I mean, like, it's not entirely unheard of for, like, a game to just have like a free-to-play multiplayer, because, like, was it like Halo Infinite is doing that?
Yeah.
Where their new game multiplayer is a free-to-play thing. So
free to play, but on Nintendo Online membership. So it's not actually free.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That changes things a little, right?
Yeah.
A little. So.
Right.
You know, there's.
Expect a little bit more out of it then.
Then they can get away with a little bit more by doing that.
At that point, I feel like it's just better to just make a totally separate thing.
Right.
Instead of just having.
Why is that a new IP?
Okay.
Yeah, like Monolith Soft's new IP. Like, what if?
Oh, like if Monolith made like a.
They are working on a new IP.
Yeah.
So, you know.
I'm trying to imagine what that would look like. Like, maybe have
imagine Xenoblade X, but fully like online multiplayer.
I would love that.
Like Xenoblade Online.
Yeah.
Do it on there, and like each party member. Yeah, that could work. Because like you already have like your party members there, and then each party member could just be a player that just has their roles in play. That would be easier to implement than like an MMO of any caliber.
Yeah. So like maybe massive is the wrong word. Maybe more like mini multiplayer online, but in an open world. Like, so you can play with your team and you can interact with a few other teams in an open world online map.
You know what that sounds like to me? That sounds like those pseudo MMOs that kind of became popular over the years, like Destiny, The Division, like games like that. Like if Xenoblade did something like that, where like you would have instances where you can run around it and it's like other teams or other players running around it, but it's not quite MMO where you have like 1,000 people in the town. Yeah, that would probably work better. That would be a very grindy game because of those kind of games. But I mean, like, it doesn't sound like a bad idea though. It sounds like it's doable considering the kind of game that Xenoblade is. So I can see it.
I don't know if they should call it Xenoblade Online though, because what if imagine it takes off and the single player Xenoblade series is just like, yeah, no, fuck, the people are just like, I'm not gonna play that. It's, you know.
Well, I don't know, because like the pull, or like I guess like the big pull for like mainline Xenoblade could just be its campaigns, right?
Yeah,
like its stories and whatnot. Meanwhile, like the pull for
I guess Final Fantasy 14 didn't impact sales of future Final Fantasy games. So it's the same argument, right? 16. Yeah, I mean, you're right. Makes sense.
It should be fine, because like the style of storytelling that happens in like multiplayer games is drastically different than the ones you see in like, you know, dedicated single player games.
Yeah, it'd be more like Xenoblade Chronicles X story, and probably just reception in general.
Like, what if that's the sequel to Xenoblade X and it's done as an MMO, free, like,
I would love that.
Free to play, but on Nintendo
X
Online.
should have been an MMO.
Right.
Xenoblade
like,
Chronicles X should have been able to be played with up to 4 people online.
Well, they played around with the concept, right? Like, that's why, like, I feel like eventually Monolith Soft does want to do something like that. Like, I feel like Xenoblade X was them trying to get there, but they weren't quite ready.
Yeah.
Just an idea. Just an idea.
When I had multiplayer as an option, but it barely worked.
Yeah, I mean, you can go into like maps, like to like an arena to battle an enemy with a team of people, and then in the main game, like you had like goals that you could do with other people, but like they weren't actually in your map. It was just kind of like a number point system.
It's very tedious and weird, and just shoved into the side, and very
it
strange.
made you
Like, they
want
just
it
tacked
made you
on-
want like more of a legitimate sort of MMO,
Yeah.
mini MMO like experience.
Yeah.
It would have been great. But
I mean, if
yeah.
Nintendo ever wanted to go into that kind of genre of games of a pseudo MMO, like Xenoblade is probably the IP that makes the most sense to do it with.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see, man. I think there could be a direct this week, and maybe we'll get like some Nintendo Online stuff. I don't think we're gonna see both Monolith Soft like games like announced during this direct, but like I don't know. You know, some of it makes sense, right? Like, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, any final like points you guys want to make or predictions or anything before we call it a night? And guys, we're ending the podcast, so if there's any sort of final questions or points you want us to bring up, put it in the chat now. We'll try to get to it before we close out.
I can't personally think of anything. Maybe we'll get some kind of big third-party like announcement. You know, sometimes we get a big third-party announcement. It's not necessarily exclusive to Switch, but you know, maybe we'll see something like that too.
Yeah, I'm kind of hoping for like that GTA collection.
Yeah, that would make sense actually. Yeah.
Do you have anything, Brandon?
Good. I don't know. Maybe we'll see Bayonetta 3.
The dream.
No. No. Maybe after Shin Megami Tensei 5 comes out.
I mean, that game's gonna be dope too. How about you know, I'm gonna make a random thing. How about we get a port of Killer 7?
What if we get a port of Xenoblade Chronicles X that comes out this year?
That too. I would accept either one.
That they announce alongside Xenoblade 3.
And Xenoblade Online.
And somehow Xenoblade 3 fits in with Xenoblade X, and that's why they're bringing Xenoblade X over.
That's not happening, but why not? Right?
How about I'll settle for Killer 7.
I would love Killer 7.
I'll settle for Killer 7.
I would love that. That'd be great. That would be so nice. I can even kind of see it happening, but probably not. Definitely not like this year, but like maybe next year or
like
something.
Anytime they're ready, I'll take it. Anytime they're ready.
That'd be really awesome.
You know, it's Suda. At this point, I'm just like I'm big on Suda 51, and like I've been going through Silver Case. Bring out the remaster of Flower, Sun, and Rain. Bring back Killer 7, and I'm happy. Maybe even bring back Lollipop Chainsaw, because that game is not available on any modern consoles.
I love these names. They sound like really weird pop albums.
Yeah, that's suited for you. The weirdness.
So I see in the chat, Kevin Rivera had an interesting question. What do you think will be the first time that we hear about Prime 4? Not this year.
Maybe E3 next year.
Yeah, I mean, okay, it's possible we get a gameplay trailer at the Game Awards this year. I would say a better bet would be Breath of the Wild, then maybe followed by Bayonetta or maybe a Xenoblade thing.
Prime Trilogy, maybe.
Prime Trilogy has a chance as well.
That game is like a myth at this point. It's constantly.
I think
mentioned.
that game might come out next year because I think Prime 4 might come out in
the year
2023.
After. Yeah, I agree. With that in mind, yeah, I agree with Brandon that I think E3 next year is a good candidate for a Prime 4 trailer. I think there's a decent chance of that. It would be, I don't think they're gonna wait until the year Prime 4 comes out to start showing it off. I think they're gonna show it off before then. Yeah. So, hopefully Prime 4 is like slated for like holiday 2023 or something. So then maybe they can start talking about it before then. I mean, look, like for example, Breath of the Wild 2, they started showing that to us in 2019. The game's not coming out till 2022. So, but hopefully if Nintendo has like a similar logic there, like maybe we see, granted, I think when they showed off Breath of the Wild 2 in 2019, they were hoping it would come out sooner. But because they were aware of their history, they didn't give us an actual year, right? So it's ending up coming out for 2022. But I'm just saying, like, it would be nice to like see Prime 4 to some extent next year, even if it's not coming out in 2023. My gut is Prime 4. We'll see it at E3 next year, though. That feels like an E3 reveal. Especially with Metroid Dread now establishing the franchise, right?
Yeah.
Like, now that people know about Metroid and when Metroid Dread will be done, people will be like, oh, well, Metroid's really awesome now. What do we do now? Oh, there's this Prime 4. Holy crap. Well, that looks amazing. And then they're already excited, but they already have this pre-registered excitement from Dread. And they're like, oh, why do I need to play Prime 4 now? And then Tell's like, oh, well, Prime 4 is going to come out later, but in the meanwhile, how about Prime Trilogy? Like, I think that kind of actually would work out really well for them. But we won't hear about Prime Trilogy or Prime 4 until after the Dread hype.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
They're going to want to give that a little bit of room to breathe.
Yeah.
I think we get DLC for Dread. It's weird to think about DLC for a Metroid game, right? Because we haven't even gone a modern Metroid game, so it's like, I don't know.
I mean, I don't think it'd be difficult to do. It's just hard to imagine, like, Metroid game.
I'm just trying to imagine what that would even be.
Side mission.
Because in my mind, I think of, like, a new map, like, even if it's smaller in scale.
Well, like, for example, like Ori, like, it's just like an optional area to explore with its own boss. It gives you its own power up or something.
Yeah.
Cool.
And maybe the DLC includes like an extra difficulty or boss rush mode on top of that.
Just New Game Plus, so that you actually have something to use the new ability for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something
maybe
like that.
Some like challenge rooms of some kind.
Yeah, like they could do something. I don't know if it would be enough to compel me to play it, right? But it would be cool. Like
maybe some kind of like new ability that like changes the speed running of the game could be cool. So it makes you want to play it through and speed run it.
I got an idea. What if you go first, Shifty?
I was just gonna say, like, if they do what I mentioned earlier, where they make like a new area and they give you like new abilities to explore that area, the reward for beating that DLC could just be you taking that new mechanics to you in the main game. You know, like New Game Plus, and then you have all that new stuff with you.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But they gotta have some kind of like something about New Game Plus, maybe like harder difficulty, or I don't know, a good New Game Plus.
Tougher boss fights or something, or maybe an extra boss fight. There's got to be at least one extra boss fight, and probably more. But I think it would be really cool if they used it to tie into Metroid Prime. Like, story-wise, like, you want to hype people up, right? If you just say, oh, Metroid Dread, hey, look, there's more to play. Like, I think there's got to be, like, more than that. Like, they got to show off something that, like, kind of excites fans. So what if it's like, oh, man, there's a Omega Pirate is, like, resurrected, right? And it's just, like, maybe there's, like, a side, like, space pirate group, and they have they give them a certain area in a ZDR that you explore in the DLC, and it's just kind of like more like space pirate lore. So it's stuff that's like cool, valuable stuff, right? Like for Metroid fans, and it's like it kind of gets you thinking about Prime, and it's all about, you know, it's all marketing, right? But it's cool marketing that gets us excited, and it gives us more reason to play it. You know, like if it's just like a random enemy with no sort of history or lore behind it, it's not as compelling as if it's like something that's already sort of registered in Metroid history.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Of course, I'm entirely okay if there's no DLC. Like I'm expecting Metroid Dread to be all encompassing and to be satisfying with what it is, and there's no need for more there. But most Nintendo games have DLC these days, so it's, I don't know, like remasters don't get DLC, but brand new games pretty much. Animal Crossing got DLC, Luigi's Mansion got DLC, Breath of the Wild. Well, the only one that didn't was Mario Odyssey, and it still got DLC. It just wasn't paid DLC. Like, can we think of a brand new Nintendo game that's come out this generation that hasn't had DLC? 1-2 Switch.
Super Mario Party.
Super Mario Party got a free update recently, though.
Yeah,
we counting updates? because they
I just
Odyssey.
added online DLC.
Yeah.
It added content, but yeah, it was not paid. If you want to just talk about paid DLC, then Mario Odyssey is definitely one, and Mario Party is another.
Some remakes have gotten DLC.
Which
Mario
ones?
Kart 8.
Mario
Like
Kart.
if I go back to the Fire Emblem like remakes, like some of them have had DLC.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, a remake is different than a remaster, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
like
Yeah, those games are like fully remade.
they're like treated almost as new games.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I don't think
They're, like,
has
spiritual
Miitopia had any
reboots.
DLC announced?
Of the original.
I don't know. I don't know enough about Miitopia to even care, but
I don't know.
I don't know.
Well, actually, didn't Pokken Deluxe didn't I get DLC?
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, Pokken did. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
It did.
It's just kind of
Where's the
forgotten.
port?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's unlikely that Dread could get DLC, and honestly, like I kind of wanted to, only because if it's story content, like if it's content like maybe new boss fights and a smaller new area to explore, that kind of thing, like I kind of really hope they do that, because if this is gonna be the first Metroid game in 19 years, it's gonna be like not well, you know what I mean, like new.
Yeah.
I'm kind of hoping it lasts as long as possible, and Metro games aren't typically that long. So while I'm going to enjoy my time with them, I'm really going to like it. DLC would kind of make that last a little bit longer. You know, like it depends on the kind of DLC, honestly. Like if it's just challenge rooms, I'm not going to care. But if it's
kind of like what I said, where like something that adds a little bit to the lore.
Right, yeah. Like if it's something like that, then I'll be there to buy it and enjoy it and play it. But if it's something that's minuscule, like a challenge room or something, then I'm just not going to care.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be Space Pirates, right? Link into Prime 4. It could be like, for example, maybe more like backstory on Adam. You know, like there's a few different angles they could go. It would be nice to see. But again, I mean, we're on the same page, right? Like I said, I wouldn't necessarily care for DLC, but it kind of comes down to what kind of DLC it is, right? Like if it's like you said, like it's just challenge stuff that doesn't really add anything to like the lore or not really much world building there, I don't care. But if it is something like that where it's lore and world building, I'm like, okay, I'm in. I want that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree.
Let's see, I got a Nishant Kilkart. And Xenoblade DE didn't have DLC per se, but extra content that wasn't in the OG. Right, well, yeah, but we're talking about paid DLC after the fact. But it was really awesome to get Future Connected. I love Future Connected. I think there's a decent chance because most brand new Nintendo games have gotten DLC. So we'll see what happens. It's just kind of like uncharted territory because we haven't seen how Nintendo will handle a modern day Metroid game. But we're going to find out. So that's very exciting. But I think we've pretty much reached the... Oh, there's one more interesting thing here I see was brought up by Birdman. And I think the exclusive Resident Evil game for Switch will be another Revelations game. There is that rumor of a Resident Evil game in development. I personally am not that big of a fan of the Revelations series. I
think the first one was great. The second one was a little iffy, but...
I'm okay with... I just want a Resident Evil game that feels like a brand new Resident Evil game. I don't want it to feel like a lesser Resident Evil. So, whatever they need to call it, I just want it to be like a ground up Resident Evil game. I want to see the same love and attention and effort that was put into Monster Hunter Rise for Switch, but for a Resident Evil game on Switch. I
mean, that's not too unlikely, considering like it is using a modified version of its engine.
Right, the re-engine. Like it's like they would use the same engine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Birdman's saying there wasn't a data leak last year. I mean, I've heard about it, right? So I hope it's not canceled, that it's 100% legitimate, and that it's a quality project. And it conceivably could be announced in a September Direct. I mean, last year we got the announcement of Monster Hunter Rise. Maybe Capcom has another big announcement this year in September.
it'll probably be like another timed exclusive deal where it
Yeah.
releases first on Switch and then it shows up on PC like a year or maybe
Yeah.
6 months down the line or whatever.
Yeah, that'd be great. Another thing to point out, we could get Monster Hunter Rise DLC. We're talking about DLC. Like Monster Hunter Rise is gonna get DLC, like a paid expansion. So we could finally see that announced during September Direct.
How far into? I'm not sure if anyone here played Monster Hunter World, but does anyone know how long after the release of World did Iceborne come out? Yeah,
Google's our friend. So Monster Hunter World release date was
like early in the year, like January, February, something like that.
Yeah, you're right. On PlayStation and Xbox, it released January 2018, and then August 2018 for Windows. But then what about Iceborne? September 2019. So it released about a year and a half later.
Yeah, so it might be, I don't know, depending on how quick they can work with that with Rise, that seems kind of quick if it is.
I think Rise is supposed to be coming out early next year on PC.
Yeah. I would imagine we would see a Rise Iceborne like equivalent after the PC release.
Maybe.
That's what I think.
Yeah, I just wonder like if they want to keep the momentum going, like they should make an announcement soon because I feel like the momentum for Rise is dying. At least so.
No, yeah, I agree. It's because all they really have been doing is like updates for Monster Hunter Stories 2 and those small like Capcom collaborations.
Yeah, they haven't really been popping. Like they don't have to do the expansion DLC yet, but they need a cool thing. We've talked about it before, like what if they added a monster? What if they added like a Ridley monster or like a Lionel monster? Like that would be hype. I think a Ridley one would make sense timing wise. You add Ridley to Monster Hunter Rise right before Dread. Like that's a good idea.
Like, they need to add monsters, like just in general. I feel like it's just like it doesn't even need to be a collaboration effort or anything like that. I mean, it would be cool, it would be, but it just feels like it's been a while now. I think like the month after it came out was like it could be like the last time. I could be wrong on that. Or they added like monsters, or it might have been a little bit after that.
Maybe 2 months, but not too long after. Like by E3, they were kind of done, which was just pretty much 3 months after the release of like major stuff.
Yeah.
And they need something hype, like actually hype.
I feel like they need to add stuff, which is monsters when you talk about Monster Hunter, but they need to add stuff that is like actually extending the time, your gameplay with the game, like your game time with it. Because if you just give me like one hunt and say, okay, you do this hunt, you unlock Akuma, it's like, okay, I'm gonna do that one quest and then I'm done. Like I'm not playing anymore. Like I got Akuma, I'm done.
Yeah.
Right? So if they add more monsters,
maybe
that
they
means
should add a new map.
Yeah, that I would imagine that would come with like the big expansion though, whatever that would be.
Yeah.
But if we're talking like updates just until that happens, they just need to add monsters, honestly. Like
just I don't know for what the record, though, the first reveal trailer for Iceborne happened in the same year, for a Monster Hunter World. Granted, the PC version did come out 6 months after the other versions, right? So the PC version was already out, but by December, apparently the trailer came out for Iceborne, and it came out like more than half a year later. So,
yeah. So I mean, it still falls under like not this month. Like it's not gonna be this month because it's the PC really still has to happen.
Yeah, based off that timing, I would agree. Yeah. But also the PC version is taking longer. When is the PC version coming out for Monster Hunter Rise?
I don't know.
Like it's more time exclusive for Switch than it was for the other platforms. Like it's coming out a whole year later. No. That's my brain being dumb. I saw release date 2021. And I thought 2020 was next year.
Yeah.
I mean, Monster Hunter Rise came out in what, March? Like late March?
March 26, 2021.
All they've saying is early 2022.
Which
I mean that
suggests a whole year later.
Yeah.
Which is longer than half a year.
Probably at least a year.
So I don't know. I mean, do they really need to wait for the PC version to announce the DLC for Switch?
They probably don't, but I would like to think that they want this DLC to come out on both platforms at the same time.
Well, what if the DLC comes packaged with the PC version day one?
I'm gonna say still no, only because I could be wrong, but I believe
Brandon's gone.
Oh, Brandon's gone.
You pieced out.
But I was gonna say, like, I could be wrong, but I believe when Monster Hunter World came out on PC, there was a big update the same day. So if they follow in that same timing, that tells me that they would do a big update for Rise, but not quite the DLC. Like, maybe, I don't know, but that's what that tells me. Like, they would do what they would call like the G rank update, I think it would be called.
Yeah.
And they would add that rank, and then they would add like whatever it is.
I don't think we should have to wait a year and a half to get a G rank update.
I don't think we should either, but that looks like what's happening.
I don't know. Maybe we get an announcement this direct.
I mean, if it happens, amazing.
Also, a Monster Hunter Rise DLC trailer makes sense for the Game Awards, as what they did last with the Iceborne. Like, they saved it for the Game Awards.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's two sides, right? There's like waiting for the PC version, but then there's also like, hey, momentum. Hey, there's a direct. Hey, there's also the Game Awards.
Yeah.
Like,
and
it's a toss.
And mind you, this is like a relatively new thing, because like the only time we've ever seen a pass like this for Monster Hunter was the previous game, right? There's only been like one game that follows this.
Who's to say they do it exactly the same? But then there's also the whole like COVID thing too, right? So like there's a lot of things here. I just think that they need to keep the momentum going, and I don't like, to your point earlier, like, it doesn't have to be the paid DLC. It could just be some more monster updates, something like some relevant content. We'll see. I do feel like it makes sense to have some sort of update for Monster Hunter in Direct. It doesn't have to be the paid DLC, but something. Final question before we call it a night, guys. This is from Nishant Kelkar. Player Essence is talking about Xenoblade 3 having combat that isn't auto attacks. How do you feel about that? Auto attacks isn't why I play Xenoblade 3. I mean, or the Xenoblade series. Like, like, the auto attacks are okay, but what I actually prefer pressing the arts. I like it that the arts are like, you press it, you do it. Like, I like that feels more, it's real time. The auto attacks are just kind of like a small little piece to that. So if it's less auto attack based and more art based, not a problem for me. And maybe there's still like an auto attack thing. Maybe it's just not attacking more. Maybe it's more like an auto like cooldown or like auto stamina build up or something, or kinetic energy you build up or something. Is that his speculation? Is that a rumor he heard or something? I don't know, but I don't think auto attacks make or break a Xenoblade game. It's more about the arts and that scroll wheel and what you do with that and interaction.
They changed the battle system for every single game. Like even the DLC for Xenoblade 2 had a different battle system. So telling me that Xenoblade 3 is gonna have a different battle system is like, well, duh.
Yeah,
so
but
it's just like,
specifically not having auto. We've always had auto attacks though, right? So if this didn't have auto attacks, that would be different. But even with every change, there still is like a common link. Like you still know that it's a Xenoblade combat system because it still has like that arts wheel, right? And a party system. Like that's always been like the Xenoblade style, even though each one does have a fair bit of variation. So as long as they have like, a variation of that and it's an improvement, or just maybe not even necessarily an improvement, just a solid entry that's unique and refreshing, I'm all for it.
Yeah, it's hard to tell if I'm gonna like a specific change or not when I don't even know exactly how it's gonna be implemented or what's gonna be done to replace it. Like, I have no idea.
Yeah, I might have to check out his video. I don't if it's really interesting, if that's like actually like something he heard or found out. If it's just speculation, I don't know what that speculation is based off of, but it isn't the auto attacks aren't make or break for me.
Yeah, it's not a big deal. Honestly, they can keep like most of what is Xenoblade combat and just get rid of that, Yeah. They'll still have the positioning, hit them in the back.
It might make it better because you don't have to worry about landing the auto attacks anymore.
Yeah. And it'll probably appeal to a lot more people too, in the same way that like Final Fantasy VII Remake kind of appeals to a lot of people because it wasn't turn-based anymore. was like,
Yeah.
I really did like the flow of auto attacks charging arts and arts charging your specials and your specials charging up things that you do for your what's it called? Anyways, I like how
Depends which
everything
game.
flowed together very well. Chain attacks.
Yeah.
So it would kind of they'd have to do something to change it, but
Right.
I don't know.
There would need to be something that makes sense that replaces that. I agree.
It could follow like some fighting game like mechanics where it's just like, oh, hitting them with like normal attacks builds up a meter that allows you to use your special attacks, and then that special attacks go into another meter, which would be your chain and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. So it could still all feasibly work. It would just be more.
I just hope they don't just go back to having the arts be on timers like the original game, and then just not having auto attacks.
Well, it could be a situation where maybe like auto attacks are gone, but instead it's more like Zelda, where you just like slash, right, or whatever your weapon is, and you fight in real time, and then you have your arts that go on beyond that. Like you have specials that you interact with, and so that's what it is. So the auto attacks are still there; they're just no longer auto attacks; they're just real time attacks. You have to press buttons for,
that.
And when you build enough up of whatever it is you need to build up for a meter, then you can access some of your arts, and that they are more powerful, more effective techniques.
Yeah.
And then that can still lead into like team attacks or chain attacks or something like that.
That's pretty much what I was thinking. Yeah, like it could just serve the same purpose.
Yeah, and it being in maybe real time maybe makes it seem more mainstream, right? So it can land a larger piece of the pie.
A lot more mainstream appeal.
Yeah. That's actually, it sounds kind of cool. If it's like that, like what we just talked about, that's actually kind of exciting. But I guess maybe we'll find out in a direct this month. Maybe next week. Maybe not. Don't buy into the rumors necessarily. Remember, take it with a grain of salt. But there's a chance. And I think it's a solid one. But we'll see. But anyways, everyone, thank you so much for listening and watching. If you could leave a like on the stream, share the stream, that would be appreciated. If you could check out both Shifty and Brandon's channels, they are linked in the description below. But that's all for now. Have a good one.
Bye, guys.
Take care.